All right, we are live. I apologize for the technical issues earlier, but welcome everyone to the House of Mystery. Today, we are going to be talking about comic books that we enjoy, that we highly recommend, because I know in this community we talk a lot about comics that we dislike. I have three guests with me today. First off, I have Switchpoint.
Hey, yeah, what's up? Switchpoint's here. Sorry, I am like literally. I woke up not that long ago,
Hmm.
so yeah.
I have Just Some Guy,
How's it going, everybody?
and I have Corrupt.
Yo, what's up? I'd like to make one comment. I like how I have an avatar of like a little boy, and right next to me is just like this woman who looks like she's orgasming. So it just creates the most awkward setup.
Hey there, little boy. You want to SS?
Cool thing, man.
Guys, please try to keep it as clean as possible. My family watches these.
Oh yeah, I can't. Oh yeah, I forgot. I can't be dirty. Like England team won't let me be filthy either. So,
I mean, that's fair. Well, okay, we'll try to keep it at least PG. How's that sound?
oppression. This is
So,
what oppression feels like. I'm sorry, Mr. E, go ahead.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about comic books that we really love and that we think could use some more attention. So, Switchpoint, why don't you start us out with a comic book that you really enjoy?
Well, I mean, like a comic that I actually really enjoy is recently I've been like really enjoying the Unnatural book by Mirka and Delpho. She recently like got so she had her connections with Image recently and got the book translated into English because it was originally Italian. And and it's actually I think the first time Image has actually ever translated a storyline, but they're working in close connection with Mirka and Dolpha. And you might recognize her because she does a lot of the covers for like Harley Quinn, and she's worked on a lot of other DC books as well. So her art's really actually very fantastic, and actually to get her like on her own story is just really cool. The story is kind of an interesting twist on what it's like. Kind of trying to find the best way to explain, like. Kind of a weird analogy of like racism and sexism and stuff like that, but like not like in your face about it, because like what it is so what it they use anthropomorphic creatures to tell the story instead, and so they say interspecies relationships. So like if you're a pig, you can't have sex with a wolf, and if you're a pig, you have to have sex with a male pig. You can't have sex with a female pig, kind of thing, right?
No.
So like a lot of stuff like that is like discussed in the storyline and stuff like that, and why society thinks this is a good thing and stuff like that, and why some people think it's a bad thing, and kind of like the it goes with the kind and we follow like our main character Leslie and like the troubles and tribulations she's going through as this is becoming like a thing, and we also get a little bit of like a mystic thing going on in the background as well because of connections with people and from like past lives and stuff like that too.
So it's with like reincarnation and stuff like.
Yes, Leslie turns out to be the reincarnation of of a prophet, from a lost society, and which is why it's like rekindling this argument now, in her society, and then there's like somebody who's like a wolf who's a reincarnation of the albino wolf, which was her lover back when she was young, back when her previous self existed.
Oh, that sounds really cool. Have either of you, Just Some Guy Corrupt, have you heard of this book?
Yeah, actually, because Nerd and Switch talk about it from time to time.
No, I've never heard of it before.
It's I mean, if you're a furry and you're into no, I'm just joking. It's actually pretty good from what I read because like I said, Nerd and Switch kind of got me into it. At first, I was somewhat not hugely into it because the themes and didn't really appeal to me, but yeah, after reading it, yeah, it's actually it's a pretty good read.
Yeah. The first two volumes are actually already out. The last volume, which will be volume 3, will be coming out. So these are the trades, but because like she's doing the single issues of the last volume now. So if you want to pick up the first volume or the first two and you want to give it a shot, I definitely recommend it. So you're going to get basically the first two parts of the arc, and at least that way.
And it's through Image?
It's through Image is actually doing this one, yeah.
Oh.
Surprisingly, however, like she printed it way back in her home country, Mirka, because she's again Italian. So she printed it back in the day, back in her original country, like about a year or two ago. and but she wrote it specifically in hopes that she would get it in an American comic someday, because you got to remember, she trained to be an American comic artist. That was actually one of her goals. That's why she works for DC Comics now.
Sweet. Just some guy. You want to go next?
Sure. It's ironic that, or rather coincidental, that I'm going to be recommending something that's actually quite similar called Black Sod. This is a anthropomorphic story as well about a Black Panther who works as a detective, or rather like a PI, private investigator. And it's basically sort of imagine your old sort of your old hard-boiled detective kind of story set
Yeah,
in
like
Utopia. It's
like
awesome.
in the actual Zootopia, like from the movie, or
Well, just with the type of different animals in that kind of world, it's really interesting that it looks basically like the regular world. It's just all the people are animals instead. And the artwork is done by this guy whose name I'm not going to try because it's very Spanish. But he was the animator on Tarzan for the leopard in
Mhm.
there. So he's done all the artwork for it. It's all watercolor, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this stuff is just really, really brilliant. It's very adult, so it's not like a kid's book. It's not like cutesy or anything. These are basically like real hard-boiled detective stories that are just sort of done with these kind of cute-looking animal kind of things. But they're really detailed. So like there's like a lizard guy in there at one point, and you can see like every individual scale on him. The stories are sort of broken up into these different volumes. There's one massive volume that Dark Horse put out a few years ago, and then they put out a second one. And I think that one includes two stories. The first one, I think it's like 3 or 4, and they're about 40 pages long each, maybe a little bit shorter. And they cover like a wide range of them. One's a play on race, where all the white supremacists are all white furred or white feathered animals. So it's just hilarious seeing all these different animals like polar bears and, you know, white lions all interacting together, and various birds and doves and things like that. And then there's like, murder mysteries. And then he's got like a little sidekick who I believe he's a fox or a squirrel. And he's like a little, like kind of like a little thief, but it's just a really cool looking story. The artwork is that reason alone you should buy it, because it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Actually, I recently saw for Black Sod, because I was aware of it. That was one I actually keep meaning to read because it is on my list. I did see that. I know that they're making like I think a visual novel game or something in relation to it.
So it's like it's got the look of Zootopia with a feel of like Animal Farm or something like really serious, but kind of dark, basically.
Yeah,
Like
it really is just like a hard-boiled detective story, but just with these sort of
if Philip
anthropomorphized
Marlowe
animals.
was an animal.
Exactly. That was the guy I was trying to think of, and I just could not think of it. I was like, it's cigarettes, but I can't remember what it is. Yeah, it won Eisner's for it, and it's actually deserving of it because it really is very good. The stories are really engaging.
This
And
was done. Wasn't it a Mexican artist that made Black Sod, if I remember correctly?
no, I think they're both Spanish.
Are they
No,
Spanish?
they're both Spanish, but it's published in France for some
Ah,
reason.
okay.
I heard that the France and Belgium are really big on comics as well.
They are. They have a huge market of stuff that just never comes over here.
It's a bit disappointing.
They actually print their books very differently over there too. They do instead of like calling them volumes, instead of doing volumes or single issues like we do here, they do like kind of compendiums almost, or kind of like short stories and stuff like that. Like they treat it more serious than we do, it seems.
Yeah, that's what these are, and that's kind of the interesting part about it. When I got it from the library the first time, and I was just like, oh, this looks interesting. And they're not quick reads. You're going to be sitting there. It's like reading like a hard-boiled detective novel. You're going to be going through about 40, 50 pages for each story. So it's a good read. Like you just sit there and go through it. And maybe I was taking a long time because each page is like magnificent. I'm just like drooling over the artwork, trying to find. There's there's one page where it's like a double page spread, and it's of Mardi Gras, and it's like this dude drew everything all the way to the horizon line. Everything is there, and then he had to paint it, and it's stunning. Like that alone is stunning. So they're really good. I was hoping that they would bring them out as they were coming out in France, but it seems like there's a little bit of a delay.
No, that's to be understandable because they do have to translate it as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, that's definitely something I want to check out. Who's it published by?
It's published by Dark Horse. I believe they're all still in print because the first one came out here sometime around like early 2000s, and I think the last one came out in 2014, 2015.
So this is a finished series.
It's not finished. That they're still working on them, but because they're taking such a long time to do the whole thing to begin with, it's going to take longer for it to get ported over to the US. So I think they're still working on like the next installment that hasn't come out in France yet. And then you got to wait for the licensing rights so it can come out here.
Okay.
Or you could just import it from France. Yeah.
I would have to learn how to read French. But Corrupt, you're up next.
All right.
What do you recommend?
Okay, so I'm gonna recommend C23. It's actually an older book. Actually, it's very 90s, and it's basically it's very 90s. It has all of the 90s cliches and stuff like that.
How many pages does it have?
It has about 8 issues, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it did have 8 issue. I think it wasn't like the 8th issue like split into 2 or something.
Yeah. It was like I enjoy it probably because I have such a fondness for like 90s like material, that and I really like the art style. It's like your typical sort of it's basically your typical like basic story with the old art of something like Wildcats, if you're familiar with that.
Okay, yeah, I love Wildcats. I like the animated Wildcats. It's a great cartoon.
Yeah, it was a great story. Like I said, it's not really it's not like a really great story. What, you don't remember the Wildcats cartoon, or you don't remember C23?
Either.
Oh, the Wildcats cartoon was, I think it was
around the time Image was trying to get like a lot of their properties to get a cartoon.
Was it before or after? So the thing about Wildcats was that it was very much like a product of its time. So the humor is like very corny, but I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of like, it is sort of like a poor man's X-Men to a degree.
It's part of the charm of it, though.
Yeah, it was actually like there was like an army of they were like an elite team that was assembled by a dude to fight like a bunch of aliens that possessed people.
Yeah. The Wildcats also.
What about? I literally don't remember anything about it other than the art.
Yeah, that's what it was about. It's like they were called the Damonites.
Oh yeah, that's right. I barely remember the cartoon.
And I
never read the comic though.
And they were led by like this dude who kind of looked like Ghost Rider, named what is it, like Hellspot or something like that.
No, dude is all about Grifter, man. Grifter
was cool as shit. He was
I do remember the Damonites because they actually showed up. They were a part of this like storyline in the New 52, and it ended up not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might have remembered Hellspawn. He was basically like, he had a sort of skull face and like fire for a head.
I remember him. He got into a pissing match with Superman.
Yeah, and like he never did anything though. Like he was presented as being like really powerful, but did absolutely nothing.
The only good thing we got out of it is like Grifter met like Deadshot. Or no, wait, he didn't meet Deadshot. He met what is it? No, yeah, he met Deadshot. He also met I can't remember his name right now. Slade. He also met Slade as well, which is actually really cool because
Yeah.
just the idea, like, because that's literally who Grifter is based off of, is those two characters anyway. So
Yeah, like I mean, just from the outfit alone, you can tell.
yeah. So for me, that it was just for me, that was actually kind of cool just to have like those two meet Grifter, because like it's like if you're gonna put them in the universe, you might as well at least go with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I mean, he should at least see who he's based off of, which is interesting. But yeah, like I mean, that's basically what it was. It was just like aliens call to Daemonites. They possess people, and then the Wildcats have to stop them, and that's pretty much it. But they introduced a few villains from the comic into the cartoon, but it was just so random when they'd show up.
Oh man.
But that's pretty much it for me. Like I said,
And this was from Wildstorm?
this is from this is Wildcats. I think it wasn't it. Is it Image comic? I think wasn't it?
Yeah, Wildcats was like old fashioned Image. Like,
Yeah.
this was actually one of the ones that who was it that headed it? It was
Jim Lee's, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was Jim Lee's. Yeah, this was one of the ones Jim Lee wanted to really work on when he was, because he would. I think one of the things is like he wanted to do an X-Men like team, but he just didn't have rights to use X-Men, so he's like, well, I'll make the Wildcats instead.
Yeah, and they were pretty good. Like their powers are cool, and their powers are pretty unique and interesting. So.
Mhm.
Also, but yeah, like I mean, that's
Chris is saying Wildcats is Wildstorm DC.
is it?
Yeah, I think they changed the name
now
to Wildstorm.
Oh yeah, they
got
did.
bought out. Well, he sold it. He sold it to him.
Yeah.
Like each one had their own imprint, and Jim Lee went over and sold his imprint to DC Comics.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, he was one of the first.
Yeah, I think he was the first one to do it, and I think because Top Cow is like Mark Silvestri's thing, and then Jim Lee had Wildstorm, but it was already an imprint within Image, and he just sold off his portion to DC Comics. So everything that was associated with his stuff, DC now owns.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I have a comic that I want to recommend, and it is Punk's Not Dead by.
Oh, I've heard of that. Comic Vision review was going to review it, or I think he already did. I'm not sure.
It's by David Barnett and Martin Simmons. And interesting thing, David Barnett hates us. Like, he read an article for The Guardian about how much we suck, essentially. But his book is damn good. It's definitely a good book, and it's definitely something that I can recommend. It's about this kid named Fergie Ferguson. No, I'm not kidding. He lives in England, and he's 15. And his mom makes him go on all these like trashy talk shows like Jerry Springer, and they do this to like kind of scam money. So on his way back to England, he encounters a ghost named Sid, who I'm pretty sure is based off of Sid Vicious from the Sex Pistols. And somehow they end up getting stuck together, and Sid is constantly following him around. And it turns out that the fusion of the two kind of unlocks some sort of like hidden powers that Fergie has. So now they have to try and figure out how they get stuck together. And they're also trying to understand their new powers, but their new powers are causing all kinds of weird shit to happen around them, which, as you can imagine, is started to catch some notice from some very dangerous people in the government.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a lot of like references to like to punk rock throughout the throughout the series?
There is. And the art is amazing. The art is like kind of psychedelic in a way, and it's really well drawn. But there's Punk's Not Dead that lasted I think for like 6 issues, and then there's a sequel that continues the story called Punk's Not Dead, London is Calling.
Okay, I'm gonna have to at least give it a try, because I do like wild out there stories sometimes.
Yeah. I want to say more, but I also don't want to spoil the story because it's a really, really good story.
Oh, that's fair.
I think I've seen the covers for this. I don't know who publishes it.
Let me see.
I think IDW from their Black Crown thing.
Oh, okay.
Let me see.
Yeah, it's the Black Crown label that does this. Yeah, I just searched it up right now.
And like the artist hates us. That's interesting.
The writer hates us.
Oh, the writer hates us.
Weird.
You know, we should tell him thanks for entertaining us, monkey.
Ooh, that's a spicy one. But since I guess it's coming back around, I'll go next. And here's one. I'm not sure if anyone here has heard of it. Does anyone know the writer / artist Arthur Depends?
No.
I'm not familiar with him.
So he's a kind of like a person from the UK, from not the UK, from Europe, and he does stuff like Piches Mignon and stuff like that. But one of his series that I really like is Zombilenium. So the idea of Zombilenium is, it's kind of hard. It's actually not that crazy hard to explain, but like what it is there's a guy who ends up going to a park. While he's there, he gets killed and is reincarnated as a monster. It finds out that the people that are working at the park are actual like living monsters, and they're working at the park to actually kind of get energy to like live. It's like, imagine if you were like stuck working at like Disney World, but you actually have to for your own like actual like well-being kind of thing.
So like really working at Disney World.
Yeah.
As a mascot, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And like this guy actually had a power that was strong enough that he actually became like the starring mascot of the park itself. We have like other characters, like a few of the main characters. One was like a witch. One of them is actually like the actual like owner of the park himself, who's a very old fashioned type of man who's just trying his best to like do what he thinks is best for the people that are working for him and stuff like that. A lot of really crazy twists and ties. Like the third book actually had one of the best twists ever. And the thing is, I actually have a personal tie with this book because back before we actually got the official translations for this, I was actually on a forum where the people worked to like fan translate it, and I was actually one of the guys who took the fan translated translations, edited the grammar, and photoshopped them into the book for people to read online before the actual like official book came out. And I highly recommend like actually picking it up. So Tome 4 is technically like what they call it. So they call Tome 1, Tome 2, Tome 3, Tome 4, which is where like it's the same thing as saying Volume 1, Volume 2, 3, and 4. Tome 4 is on its way out in July. They are a little slow on like releases for the book because Arthur Depends only works on it on his part-time, and he's been trying his best to get an animated series from, or either a series or a movie from it. That's actually how much he loves this series.
Hold on, this comment. This is from a guy whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, but yes, there are manga recommendations. I have done over 10 of them. They're on my channel. If you want, you can go and watch them. And keep going, Switch.
Another one of my favorite characters is actually like there's actually one of my favorite characters is a skeleton dude. I can't remember his name right now because he has like a somewhat Frenchish name. And the funny thing about him is that he's actually like a black guy. And so it's like always a running gag about like, you know, about keeping the skeleton down and stuff like that. It's almost like a self-referential joke.
Kind of like the guy who had the demolition expert from TF2, where he said like, I'm a black Irish Cyclops or something like that.
Exactly. Kind of similar to that. There's actually like in one of the issues, actually like he actually loses his body, and somebody else is like dragging him around, and he's just like, part of it's just like how humiliating that is for him. Like
the man is always keeping the skeleton down.
Yeah, man's always keeping the skeleton down, man.
Have any of you ever worked at an amusement park?
No, like a friend of mine did actually.
I did for a little bit one summer.
He told me it was hell.
It was hell. It was absolute hell. The only thing that kept me going through it was with the thought that, all right, if it ever gets too bad, I can just quit whenever I want to. But to be stuck there and to have to work just to survive, that'd be like a fate worse than death.
I mean, yeah, there's some really great twists though in the book. Like, I don't want to give them away because it's one of those ones that you actually have to read it to get the twist, and you might actually have to read it more than once because, like, I actually missed it my first time read. Like, I kind of got the twist, but then to get the actual details of it and like make sense of it, I had to read it like a second time, and I was like, oh, like it was just a whoa moment. It was great.
I love stories like that where you read it through a second time and you get things you didn't know before.
Mm-hmm.
What
So,
was the title again?
Zombilenium.
Zombilenium.
Yeah, so it's like so it's just like zombie, but you put linium at the end of it for like I don't know where the linium part came from. There's probably like an actual reason. You got to remember this is a French series, so it's probably based off of like some French play of words or something.
Yeah, like how little deaths means orgasm. No, tiny deaths, I think. It's something like that.
So, just some guy, you're next.
Yeah, so this one, since you mentioned manga, this was something I was going to mention. So this is one of my favorite manga that gets almost no love here, but used to, Shaman King.
Oh, I love Shaman King.
Oh my, that's amazing. I love
last year I read through the entire thing.
Oh my.
This is so amazing. So for those who've never seen it, who've never read it, ignore the anime, especially the American translation. Ignore that.
No, okay, no, I'm gonna give the American anime one thing. That opening cutscene was actually really fun.
Yeah, the intro I liked. Everything else was
just ignore everything else.
The thing about the American adaptation, the American dub of it was that you really didn't understand what was going on, and they cut out and edited so much, so it just.
Well, a lot of it is based off of Japanese culture.
Yeah, like no, the problem is that it was how it was edited. Like it was edited and dubbed really poorly.
Yeah, they were deliberately trying to get around certain elements because it didn't pass Fox's muster.
Well, I mean, like, there's also the scenario that a lot of the ghosts that show up later on are based off of multiple different types of religions. Like this, so there's so American religions, Japanese religions, Hindu religions, like all these different types of religions start like combining together because that's where all the most of the ghosts and their powers are coming from. And so, like, well, of course, 4Kids is like, well, we can't depict too many religious things.
Yeah. Well, just so for the people who don't know what the story is actually about. Yeah. The story is about this kid named Yo who can see ghosts, and he can use ghosts to basically bond with them and use them as weapons in battle. And the idea is that he's going to become the Shaman King, who is essentially the new god. So it's him going up against other people who can do this in the Shaman King battle, and the main villain is his twin brother, who's inhabited by their technical great ancestor, who is like this ultimate badass. And he's got his crew with him, and then Yo's got his crew that he builds up over time. And it's just a really cool character. I like Yo's character because he's laid back. He technically listens to Bob Marley, but they couldn't call it that. And he seems to behave as if he's high, but he's not.
I love Yo.
I mean, yeah, of course he's high. You gotta be high to commune with the spirits, man.
Oh man, like higher. He's transcended human boundaries, man.
Yeah, I mean, I picked it up when it first came out here, and I fell in love with it. And then they stopped kind of publishing it regularly, so I ended up reading it online. And Hiroyuki Takei, who's the guy who created it, is a fantastic artist.
Yeah, he's like the inspiration for my art, actually.
I tried mimicking his style. It's deceptive. You think it's easy, but it really isn't.
Difficult because the proportions and everything are really difficult to get.
Yeah, they're very, very hard. And his style changes over the series, like a lot of artists do. It gets much more spikier and more angled. He starts off rounder, very detailed, but he maintains that detail.
Yeah, definitely he does.
I love when they get into the oversouls where they fuse the ghosts with the weapons instead of themselves.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So like when they get their powers, initially it's they're sort of taken over by the soul of the of the ghost, and then eventually they start manifesting them as weapons. And the fun part is that only they can see this. So everyone else just sees these like kids just wailing around and like getting slapped around
Screaming.
and everything,
Like,
but they can't see the ghost. So they
Yeah.
just see these kids hovering in the sky and like getting pimp slapped, and there's blood everywhere. And like, what is going on? I love that that's actually what's happening, but it's never admitted in the actual
I
story.
love Hara who fuses an ice spirit with a snowboard.
Yeah.
It was so cool. Like they had a Shi too. Like I love that. Like everything about it was really good.
But
Yeah.
no one is better than Ryu because Ryunosuke Unamea. He's the man.
Well, you've also got to talk about Choco Love.
Yeah.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about Choco Love. So his name is Choco Love. I'm not making that up. That's what
Yeah.
he's named. And he does have the black face lips. He does. And he's from New York. And he was a leader of a gang named Shaft. I'm getting it all out the way because you're all ready to be offended. I'm just letting you know. He's actually not that bad a character. So Hiroyuki Takei actually draws himself the same way. So he draws himself with sort of black face, round lips. He does that to himself. So it's not a racist thing.
Yeah, it's a Japanese.
Interesting thing.
It's just a Japanese thing.
They really,
Yeah.
Spirit,
they really like rounded lips. You see those on a quote unquote white and Asian characters too.
Yeah.
They do it a lot with Buddhist characters too as well. Actually.
Yeah. He ends up
One
being
thing,
like one of the most
interesting
powerful
is
characters.
that his spirit is actually a jaguar that he fuses into like these claw things that he has.
Oh yeah, and what's really cool is that the story has this kind of comedic element to it, but it gets really dark. Like with Choco Love, for example, he kills someone, and he just continues to sort of lead this gang. And one of the children of the guy that he kills comes back in the Shaman King battle to fight him, and they actually do. Spoiler alert! Just gonna give a little something away. They actually do kill him. And when he dies, he just accepts it because he thinks that he deserves to die. And then when he has to be brought back, because they can bring people back, he has to sacrifice something. So he ends up coming back. And when he comes back, he is the most powerful out of Yo's group when he's brought back to life. But he has to give up his eyesight to do it. And when he comes back, he's gone and spoken to one of the Mesoamerican gods. And now when he's like moving around and it looks like he's moving at lightning speed and he's flying, he's actually running on an oversoul version of Machu Picchu.
Yeah, what's funny is that he wasn't actually a bad character. He was actually a really good character. He just
it's just a design that's going to make people get upset.
Yeah, but if it wasn't for honestly, if it wasn't for the lips, like people would be fine with him because he's actually a really good character.
Him and Horror are really good characters. They're just sort of the clowns of the group.
Yeah, they're meant to be. That's kind of like the joke. But for people who are questioning like more serious moments, like there's a moment where Anna actually has to go up to Yo and like actually slaps him out of his actual like aloof attitude.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, like she slaps him out of his aloof attitude to say like, no, Yo, like you might have to do something you will regret really soon. Like there's moments where like, there's comedic moments where she's training him and stuff like that, but there's like actual serious moments where she has to like remind him. It's like, and then you're reminded that Yo is only acting aloof and acting the way he does because he doesn't want to face the reality of what's actually going on half the time.
The best example of that is when they go up against the doctor who mutilates his best friend Manta, who is like this boy who can see ghosts, but he can't actually do anything. He can't use Oversoul. So he's just there to sort of be our eyes and ears to what Yo's doing so we can see what he's doing. And he's almost killed. And so Yo is told by Anna, like, you have to make a choice. If you keep him around, he's going to die. So you have to cut him off. And there's this moment where they're both in the hospital and Manta comes in to see him. And Yo basically just tells him, I'm not your friend. We're not friends anymore. And the three panels are just heartbreaking because you can see Manta's little heart just crushing, and he runs out, and Yo just feels terrible about it. And Anna's like, you did what you had to do. Like, that's how cold it can get.
Yeah, that doctor was actually in the story. He was a descendant of Faust, like the tale of Faust and Mephistopheles.
Yeah, I for whatever reason, I was just blanking on his name. I could just remember his image.
Yeah. Do you want to tell them about Japanese Elvis?
So there's a character in there named Ryu or Yosuke, and he has the most ridiculous pompadour ever. This thing is like 4 feet long.
Do you mean
Yeah,
God? Because he is God.
Basically, every time this thing gets cut off, it grows back, but as a smaller pompadour in the middle of the pompadour.
Do you remember the time it got split?
Yes, and it turned into two pompadours, and then it got cut again. So you had 2 tiny ones on top of the bigger ones. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's played completely straight.
Well, no, there's a short period of time where he actually had his hair down because it wasn't long enough for him to shape it into the pompadour, and so he actually had it straight down for like and it was only there for like maybe I think like 1 issue or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like he actually looks good with his hair down. That's what makes it even funnier.
I remember.
He actually starts out not being a shaman, but trains
wasn't
and
he like
becomes one.
Yeah, wasn't he like just your typical random like NPC type thug?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was a
leader.
bully.
Yeah,
And he gets punked by Yo. That's like the first one that he beats.
he's basically Kuwabara, honestly. Just
Yeah.
like
And,
everyone like sees him as just this ugly thug, and then he becomes like this endearing character that everyone likes.
Yeah.
Who has a very bizarre. Go ahead.
His spirit was like this. Like
Oh, it was
gang
it's
leader,
an
like
old
this
samurai.
bandit leader from like ancient Japan, who I think was actually got killed by Yo's samurai spirit.
So
I think that's was it him or was that Ren? I think that was Ren's.
No, Ren's was from China. They never met.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. It's right because it's been a while. You're
Yeah,
right. And they fought, and then they ended up sort of making up.
Yeah, and his oversoul that he fuses them into is like this wooden sword that he is famous for. Because in the manga, he's called Wooden Sword Ryo.
Right.
yes,
And we also have to talk about his weird obsession with Lyserg, because so Lyserg is like this. Is he English or French? I think it's French.
He's English.
He's English. Yeah. So he can use the oversoul as well, and he's sort of this kind of girlish boy. That is the way that he's presented, and for whatever reason, Ryu just wants to protect and save him all the time, and is very weird.
If you read Ultimo, you kind of get why. Like,
Yeah, I wasn't able to find those for whatever reason. They
like Ultimo is almost impossible to find. I had to get it all online, honestly, because I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened, and I do know that they've started it up again.
They started up the Ultimo line again?
No, Shaman King.
yeah, no, like apparently the story's like he's doing like this is what's happening like so many years after now type of thing.
Yeah, the focus is Yo's son,
Right.
Sakura.
It was called Shaman King Flowers for the first one, and then the magazine it was being published in got canceled, so they ended it, and then that same owner created a new imprint basically, and they managed to buy the license from Suseisha and from Viz, so they have control over it now. So they're publishing a new one. I think it's under 2 different ones. There's the Superstar and then Red Crimson. I think that's it.
Yeah,
And they're both coming out monthly. So I'm not sure how far along it is. I know it started last year around this time.
Yeah,
So it should be at least like a volume out by now.
The plot of that one is essentially, the god that won the last shaman fight. Apparently, there are various other people in the god realm, like essentially the previous gods who had won their shaman fights. And from the art, one of them appears to be Jesus.
Yeah.
So apparently, Jesus was a shaman who became god. But,
yeah, they hinted at that in the original manga, that each time every 500 years is basically the shaman fight. So every time you hear about a new religious figure, that's like the new god. That's what that was. That was a winner of the shaman fight.
And apparently, the previous gods aren't happy with the way the current god is running things, so they're creating like essentially this battle with their own representatives on Earth, their own shaman representatives, about whether or not the current god gets dethroned.
You mean they don't like the way he's just been a villain the whole time? I wonder why they wouldn't like him.
I mean, I don't know. It's a mystery, man.
No, he's just murdering his own minions the entire comic. Why wouldn't they like him?
Well, it's implied that he's chilled out ever since he became the supreme being in the universe.
Yeah, a little bit. In Flowers, he seemed nice to Yo's son. He
I mean, that's
wasn't.
his nephew.
Yeah.
I mean,
And even there was a scene with him and Yo where Hull, which is what this guy's name is, he was pretty mellowed out, but he still is like he's villainous. He was murdering his own people. So I don't think he's completely good.
all right. Corrupt. You're up next.
All right. Let me see. I completely forgot what I was. Completely forgot the comic I had in mind. So it's called Zombie Reanimated. It's like, okay, so actually the premise is pretty straightforward. Zombies, like zombies kind of reduced humanity in numbers after like a huge war. The zombies like basically invaded, and then the humans tried to fight them back, and they obviously didn't do very well. So the more humans died, the more became zombies. And essentially, everything we know about zombies so far is that they're zombies, so they're stupid, but they're almost invulnerable unless you hit them in specific places. And humans had just assumed that like so long as they were well armored, they could fend off the zombies and sort of like struggle along. It turns out though that a new zombie appears and he's wielding like a gun and just takes out like 10 heavily armored humans, and then he steals their train, which is what they use to supply their colony.
Wait, so these zombies are intelligent?
Well, okay, so one zombie appears so a zombie appears that's intelligent, that sort of throws everything out of whack, and that sort of like throws them all off, and they don't know what to do. The art isn't that great, by the way, but I enjoy the story. So what happens is that, however, this girl who was saved by like an intelligent zombie tries to get the military to recruit the intelligent zombie to help them fight this new zombie threat and the other zombies that are that are attacking them. It's actually really, really good.
I mean, I'm looking at it now. The art isn't. I don't think the art is bad. I think it's mostly like it looks like it's like a lack of shading and
the art isn't terrible. I like the art. It's just
Yeah, it's very cartoony though.
Yeah, it's good though. I like it. It's an interesting read, and I think you would enjoy it. It's a very simple story, but a very fun story.
Who's it by?
Let me see here. I actually have the page open so I could tell you, because I completely forgot who it was by. Actually, let me see. Let me go back here. Hold on. There we go. It's by, the writer is Jeff Marriott, and the artist is Lee Bermejo. I am not familiar with either of those names. Wait, no, hold on. Wait, I'm retarded. That's for C23. Hold on.
No, for this it's James Marr, I think, is the writer.
Let me see. Yeah, see if you can help me out there, Switch, because I completely.
Yeah, let me see. Oh, here you go. Okay, I found it. It's James Farr is the writer.
Yeah.
And the artist is Nate Lovett.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Like
DDP Comics is the one that's producing it.
I'm really enjoying it. It's pretty good.
I mean, the funny thing is they have a really nice cover artist that works on the covers for sure. Like, I love there's like a high detail. They have these high detail, like high five and style covers going on here. I like it.
Yeah, like the cover art is really good. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the alternate art for Border Town, where you get the art that's basically inside of the book, and then you see this alternative art, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's a shame that that guy absolutely hated us too.
How many issues?
Let me see. So far, it's It's about 5 issues so far, so it's not very far along.
Well, I'll definitely check it out.
I think you would like it because, like, then there's another zombie, like another sort of intel. She's not a zombie, but she's like the patron of the dead, and she like defends the living. She's pretty hot and pretty cool. She has like a scythe. She looks like a mummy. It's pretty cool. Like the character, the dialogue is fun. Like I found it to be a pretty enjoyable read. I'm gonna be honest.
Zombie has always been interesting to me. Ever since I saw
Walking
Dawn
Dead.
of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, the original or that remake they made?
I saw the remake first.
So here's how I feel about the remake, right? I loved the first, 20, 30 minutes of it before they got into the mall. After that, like, I mean, it was amazing. It was like everything. So they did this overview shot of everybody, like, of just like cars flying into buildings and the city's on fire. And then you see like, and she's just sort of like driving through all of this like rubble and chaos. It was crazy. It was like the apocalypse happened or something.
Yeah, everybody thinks about what are they going to do in a zombie apocalypse. What if you're thrown into like a Resident Evil style zombie apocalypse where you got like big hulking monsters?
Oh yeah,
like coming at you.
Oh my god, that would be amazing! Like mutant liquors and stuff like that. Honestly, I know this is probably an unpopular position, but I feel like The Walking Dead kind of needs some of that because it is. I don't know. It's kind of stale.
I'm watching it a while ago.
Well, you stopped watching a while ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when Negan, especially when Negan was like, when Negan sort of was over, it was just, I mean, there's nothing to watch. And now, especially the show, it's what I must, like Rick Grimes is gone, his wife is dead, his son is dead. It's just kind of dull now.
Well, I heard that the actor that played Rick wanted to leave because I think he lives in England, but they film in like Georgia, like really big distance to be away from your family for such a long time.
Yeah, I can see that, and I doubt he wants to move his family to like the States. I can see that.
He should. He'd have the freedom to do what he wants rather than stay in England where they're censoring you like madness.
You know, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't like. Maybe he likes the fact that they take away your spoons and your knives. Maybe, like a world without spoons is a safe world. Just some guy.
I guess you can't kill anybody the hard way. So
I mean, pretty soon
Nottingham will be happy.
I mean, pretty soon they'll be regulating their memes. I mean, I'm pretty sure they are now regulating their memes.
So like that is an offensive meme, sir. Like, so I think you have to spend some time in the prison. Maybe then it'll reform you, and you'll make more productive memes that don't hurt people's feelings.
Exactly. We want to make sure that that you are you are not offensive to anyone in any way, shape, or form. And then when we find some new levels of offense, then maybe you'll be offensive again, and we will recorrect you.
Honestly, I think someone made this joke that like the will be reduced to the only games we can play are like the beige ball simulator, where it's like you have a beige ball and you just sort of roll it around with your mouse.
Okay, but like but like that's not inclusive to other ball colors.
Oh, like people who are like people who can't see who have issues with color blindness too. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that will ever be accepted is just Pong. Like 2 sticks and the square bouncing in between them.
I feel like that would be the death of civilization. Just like
yeah, we've reverted back to Pong.
Reverted back to Pong. Like its society will break down and we'll all become like it'll just be like Mad Max.
Well, they're gonna have to try to take my games away from me. And let me just tell y'all, in order to do that, you have to go through 4 knives, 2 katanas, and a Walter PPS. So it's not going to be easy to get my video games from me.
I like how basically you described like an inventory in Skyrim.
Hey, I live on the south side of Chicago. I have to be protected. So
a lot of katana duels on the south side.
somebody like walks into like JSG's house, and all you hear is.
You'd be surprised how unnerved people are by seeing an actual sword because I actually had to bring one of them home on the train
Ugh.
from Wizard World, and I was surprised they let me on the train, to be perfectly honest, because I thought they weren't going to let me on, but I guess they didn't realize what it was. And when I got home, I was walking, on the south side, and so they're like, "Oh, he got a sword. He got a sword. He walking around like you a samurai. You a samurai." And so I pulled the blade, and they just lost it because it's like it's real. It's not fake. It's real.
Yeah, like people just see a sword. I like that when people see like actual weapons like swords, they just sort of like their minds melt.
Yeah.
The thing is, guns are commonplace. Nobody expects somebody to be walking around with a sword.
Exactly. And they don't know what to do because it's like you don't actually have to be competent with the sword to hurt somebody.
You have to hit
No,
somebody
you really
essentially.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, actually, I mean, the funny thing is, like, it's actually very common for people to buy. Where I am, like, there's when cons are going on, like, people will buy like replica swords and stuff like that all the time. The hard part is like how the con goers um, have to actually work with it because because what the con goers have to do is they have to specifically say, okay, like, you can't have this around in the con, even though we know it's a fake weapon. What you have to do is you have to like have like this slip and all that kind of like. There's so much protection and stuff like that they have to do, and that's just because like I live in Canada, and so there's certain like laws they have to follow. But I don't know
Canada.
I like the disgust in Mr. E's voice. It's
like, God damn it, Canada. At least we're not as bad as the UK.
They did that here, actually. They did the same thing here.
Yeah,
The last Wizard World I went to, they stopped you from being able to take the swords from the booth. So you have to come back before you leave and then get it. And they didn't
That's
want you
dumb.
carrying anything around. You couldn't even carry replicas within the con.
yeah.
And the previous year, there was a guy like walking down the street dressed as the Punisher, and he had two Uzis strapped to his legs, right? He had I want to say it wasn't an AK. I think it was an M16. He had an M16 like hung on his back, and he had like two smaller like sidearms. I couldn't tell what they were from a distance, and he was just boldly walking down the street. And I'm walking with a friend, and he's like, "Oh, the cops are gonna pull him over." And sure enough, the cops come and they just like roll to a stop. And he's like, "They're fake. They're fake." And you can hear them from like all the way across the street.
They're fake. They're fake. Please
fake.
Yeah. All right. Getting back on topic. The next book that I want to recommend is hold on. Actually, wrote my list down because I know I'll forget it otherwise.
Oh, did you do Switch?
I went earlier. I'm after Mr. Eon.
This is a really good fantasy comic called Seven to Eternity. It's by Rick Remender.
I like that name.
It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, where a group of people band together in order to take this MacGuffin to a specific location in order to save the world. And the main villain is called the Mud King, and he has the power to see and hear through someone else's senses if they allow him in. So he uses this power to make kind of deals with the devil, kind of, where he grants somebody a favor, and in return they let him in so he can see and hear through them. And through this he gains like knowledge and secrets and stuff, and sets a kind of a puppet government where like there's a king, but he's the one that's actually running everything.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Like I can never find enough fantasy comics, honestly.
Yeah, the main character's name is Adam Osidus, and his father actually used to be a magic warrior who used to fight alongside the Mud King before he turned to evil. But when the Mud King took over, he offered his father to make a deal, and his father refused, and so they were exiled. And Adam, like, his father dies recently because some of the Mud King's minions come and attack them. So Alex goes to make a deal so that his family will be free of exile. But the only thing is, Adam, not Alex. Adam has a terminal illness. So even if the Mud King makes him a deal, he's going to die soon. So the Mud King knows this. So he said, all right, instead of freeing your family from exile, I'll cure your disease so that you can live with them and stay with them and protect them. And he's really tempted by this because the Mud King is kind of like the devil. He's really good at tempting people. When all of a sudden, like a bunch of warriors bust in to try and kidnap the Mud King because apparently there is a temple that can strip the Mud King of his powers and free everybody. Because with the way things are now, if you just kill the Mud King, you kill everybody that he is connected to, which at this point is like thousands of people. So they have to. So they actually capture the Mud King. You have to take him to this temple, but all the while they are being hunted by the Mud King's minions, and it's a really cool. And one of my favorite things is the Adam. His main weapon is a gun, because he wasn't. His father was a magic warrior, but Adam himself was never trained as one. But he has a gun that fires bullets filled with the souls of his dead family members.
That's badass. You know what that reminds me of? The bowler from Mystery Men. I think she had her bowling ball was possessed by her dead father.
Yeah, her father's skull was physically in the ball.
Yeah, that was amazing. It was like it was encased inside of the ball, and her dad's soul could have the ball like fly around and stuff like that. I'm like, that's a badass concept.
She was like one of the only ones that had a power on the team, like an actual power on the team.
Yeah, I think it was her and little black boy who
I turned invisible. The Sphinx in the movie, he could cut guns in half with his mind. So that was something he could actually do.
Oh yeah, I forgot. He did have a power.
Yeah.
But Seven to Eternity. It's got a great story, great world. The character designs are really fun and interesting. I cannot recommend this book enough. It's from Image, and I think there are about like a dozen issues out right now. But,
okay.
Highest recommendations, Seven to Eternity.
All right, well, Seven to Eternity sounds like a fun one. So for me, now I'm not sure if anyone's heard this one. Now, it's done by a guy who's like borderline. Okay, so this is a manga, okay, and it's called "Don't Meddle with My Daughter," done by Nozumu Tamaki, I think it's pronounced. It could be wrong. Again, but he's a hentai artist, so keep in mind, like, this is borderline. This comic actually is borderline hentai. Like, it actually.
Remember what I said to keep this stream.
Hey, this comic is not, though. I said it's borderline.
It's borderline hentai.
Like, but it does follow, like, see, the thing is, he was very inspired by American comics. Like, he really liked characters like Power Girl, characters like, he liked the original style of Captain Marvel, like, not the current one. Or I should say, like, Miss Marvel, I should say, characters like that. So he wanted to do, like, what if that character was a mother and had her own daughter who's, like, taking over the role after her.
You know what doesn't help Switch is your avatar. Now let's talk about this hentai, as I have a character who looks like she's having an orgasm. Thank you, Switch.
Yeah, you got to deal with it.
All right.
But I need to interject now. Mom, when you watch this, don't look up anything that these guys are currently talking about. Thank you.
That's fine. Anyway, Don't Meddle with My Daughter is only 3 volumes. It's basically like it's a next of kin story where, like, the mother is passing the torch on to her daughter, but, like, her daughter does also her daughter has the main character syndrome of being a complete idiot and not realizing that the original hero is actually her mom until, like, much later on.
I like that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Then there's like the idea of the villains, of course, who have your basic fare. They'll be doing like there's the villain of the week thing, but then they also would do the bigger villain at the end of the story, because, like, it is only 3 volumes. Like, he actually had an end in mind, and you actually follow through.
Yes. So it's like a traditional American comic where you have standalone stories, but then you have an overarching plot.
Yeah,
that's sort of that comes near the end.
Exactly. And what I love about it is the fact that, like, it does feel very much like if a Japanese team were to, like, if a Japanese manga were to do their actual own American story comic, this actually feels like that. And every step of the way, like, I enjoyed it. Like, it really was like, oh, if Power Girl had grown up, become like 45, had a daughter, and that daughter is now a superhero.
If Power Girl did have a daughter, who would the dad be?
The comic does actually explain that. I don't want to ruin it because it is actually a twist in the story. Yeah, and that is actually a very good twist in the story, which leads to something very awkward that I don't want to ruin.
All right.
It is one of those reveals that you're just like,
Is it PG safe? Is
this is not PG safe either.
not safe for general audience?
You guys
The
are
reveal
killing
is
me
also
here.
not safe for work. No, but like not only the reveal is not only safe for work. There, I will give you one funny thing.
What's that?
Her father is a time traveler, and so when she actually, because she never actually did meet her father, and when she actually does meet her father's like only 2 years older than her.
Switch. Stop talking. Stop talking, Switch.
Hey, I said it was a manga. Did you expect anything to be normal?
Stop talking, Switch. Like I don't. No one needs to know where your train of thought is going to end. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, because who knows? I have an idea of where this conversation is gonna go. I don't think it's good.
All right. As the host,
Going where you think it's going.
I'm moving on. Justin Guy, you're up next.
So I have the answer to your fantasy need. Middle West. I seem to be the only one who's read this comic. It's a really good comic. It's by Scotty Young. And what is this artist's name? It's going to come back to me. I'll get to it in a second. It'll come back to me. But the art is actually fantastic. And the story is very simple. It's about a boy named Abel who comes from this sort of weird Midwest town. And they've got these like kind of giant pink, sort of like those like saline pouches that you see in the hospital. They're like all over the place. And it's sort of infused with magic, so it's kind of like almost like a tall tale, but it's actually real. It's not magical realism, it's real realism. It just looks like it's magical realism. And basically it's just he gets attacked by his father, who turns into like a giant tornado, and you see that his heart literally breaks, and you get like this broken heart symbol on his chest, and so he runs away from home. And he's trying to basically figure out how to get rid of this, how to fix this. And his father's basically chasing after him. And as Abel sort of emotes, as he gets angry, he starts turning into this tornado-like being too. So it's a really nice mix of this kind of magical realism, sort of folktale, American folktale, is very much set in the Midwest. So if you are someone from the Midwest, you'll recognize it, no problem. The artist's name is Jorge Corona. Fantastic art, absolutely fantastic art. If you like manga, this is like your thing. It's similar to Scotty Young's art, actually. It's sort of like a more angular, more refined version of Scotty Young's art. The storytelling in this is fantastic. Scotty Young just moves it right along. It's about 6 issues in. I reviewed the first issue, and I've been waiting for it to sort of finish up its first arc so I can review the rest of it. It's moving along where he's sort of in this carnival or circus, and he's talking to a magician there who can help him figure out how his powers work. And so the lore is starting to build. You're finding out there are all these sort of different things within this universe. There are robots, there are cave trolls. He actually has to encounter a troll in order to get out of this forest. He like has to fight a troll with dreadlocks. It's a really fun, entertaining story. I wish it got more attention. It just doesn't seem to be getting any attention from anybody.
Right. I'd like to. Oh yeah. If I may, the people in the chat would like just some guy to drink water.
Look, I know y'all saw Zach's video. This is just how I sound.
I'm just like, I saw your video. If I'm not mistaken, you said like to everybody who says I need to drink water, you drank some water.
Yeah, and it sounds exactly the same. I've been drinking water all day. You could call my job. I took like 15 like bathroom breaks.
Were you like preparing for this live stream so you would have a dry throat, or
no? I always drink water. That's all I drink. I just naturally sound like that.
Oh yeah.
I have really bad sinus problems too.
Okay,
I can do the Gollum voice. So.
That's what I was gonna say, because I always sound stuffed up. People
Yeah.
Oh hey, I thought you were like some big fat dude. I'm like, no, I just sound really stopped up.
Yeah, I have terrible sinuses, so that's why I can do the Gollum voice at will, and it's also why my voice sounds constantly dry, even though I'm almost always choking to death on my own mucus.
Is
There you go. There's a visual for you.
Oh
like
my!
let's-
somebody out there is probably into that. So I mean,
so we'll see Mark Wade someday. I'm sure we'll be seeing Mark Wade again. We're hearing him.
As soon as he says something else stupid, I will do another video. I'm just waiting. It won't take long.
I mean, I'm sure after his court proceedings, things will be interesting.
Oh yeah.
Did his own lawyer issue him a gag order?
No, he's just periodically like that. So he's been doing this for years. Well, he'll pop online, he'll say something really nutty, and then go on like a binge, and then he'll like either scrub his social media or just go silent for months.
And Mark Zaid, his lawyer doesn't really seem to care or try to keep him in line. He just does whatever he wants.
Didn't he also like lose it when like people came out to talk about the
his past abuse and stuff.
well, it's not special abuse. Like, I was talking about the Kingdom Come storyline. Like when it came out that Alex Ross, it was like mostly Alex Ross's idea, and like didn't he like freak out over that or something? Like,
did he? Like, wait, I didn't even know that was a thing. Really, that was his most.
Well, there were people have been found notes that the big idea was that it was mostly Alex's Ross. Like Kingdom Come was mostly Alex Ross's idea, and that it was that like he only just kind of like penned it and made sure that like it fit within like the storyline of the comic itself, right? But
Well, that would explain a lot of his current work, because Kingdom Come is amazing and his current fare seems to be middling at best.
Okay, I kind of want to ask Switch some questions about this. So, because this is kind of like a little bit of a bombshell, because essentially you're saying like this reason why Mark Wade is still revered by people who hate him is misplaced. Is that right?
I mean, that's the information I've been getting. I have nothing that actually like corroborates it. That's the problem, right? I want information that corroborates it, but like, because I know that I heard rumor that he also he also kind of like got a little pissy with people that brought it up and stuff like that too. So that might actually have like that might have the information that actually confirms it. You know what I mean?
You have a little bit of evidence though, because you have Alex Ross doing kind of a similar storyline with the Marvel stuff with the Earth X.
Yeah.
And it was the same kind of setup. And he basically came up with all the ideas and pretty much wrote it. And then he had like another writer come in and basically clean it up for him. But it was essentially all him, right?
Yeah, we could talk about this after we get through the recommendations. But this is something I do want to talk about, though.
All right.
Oh, for sure. Sorry.
So, Corrupt, you're up next.
Okay, so this is a manga recommendation, and it's for Ultima, which is basically I think just some guy in Switch are familiar with Ultima, but I'm not sure. But basically, it's a collaboration between Stan Lee and the artist for Shaman King. Beautiful art. And basically, it's about, so there was this guy named Dustin who's basically Stan Lee with like in a kimono and like a massive pigtail. And he wanted to see what would be stronger, good or evil. So he created robots that would, like male robots, all of which would embody one particular type of virtue or vice. And one robot that would sort of be the culmination of those two things. And Ultimo is a robot that's pure good, and Vice is a robot that's pure evil. And the idea is that, and the thing is that the evil robots, while they do have powers and stuff, they're significantly weaker, and they need to team up in order to take down and ambush the good robots, because the good robots, while significantly stronger, are kind of just like brutes, right? So they just kind of like, I kill you, like you're an enemy, I shoot you and I attack. It's kind of a weird play on, what was it that the dude from Spaceballs said? Like, evil is smart and good is dumb. It's literally a play on that. And the art is great. And So they have masters who, in a particular, they have a particular master who is with every, and they serve every incarnation of that master. So like, and the main hero is always been served by Ultimo in like every incarnation of him, and it's a great story. I really love it, and the only problem is that it is impossible to find like issues of it, at least for me. I think that was when it was still being made. But like, yeah, the art is great. The robot designs are personally my favorite. They're all a little weird and sort of like kind of like exemplify the artists. Like like I said, I really liked it, and it was, I believe, a joint. There was also another joint manga that Stanley did, and that was, I think it was like called Hero Guy.
Hero Man.
I have heard of that.
All right,
Yeah, Hero Man.
yeah, yeah, it was basic. So yeah, it's a manga. So if you like manga, you there's a good chance you'll like it. But it has clear like American influences as well, because it's a joint by Stanley.
I've seen this at my local Barnes and Noble, but I've never picked it up. I'm definitely have to pick it up now. Hopefully, if it's still there.
It
It
is
was printed by Viz here in the States, but like, yeah, I found like random volumes. I was never able to find volume 1, so I never picked it up. But it was like impossible to find.
a Fragminion says he doesn't buy the comics. He just watches you guys. He just watches us review them.
As you do.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, certain comics are definitely not worth buying.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's like, what are you gonna? You can read the. It seems like there's only like a few good comics, good to decent comics, and the rest is either crap or man-eaters and female furies. So you either have cringe or just mediocre crap. All written by the same people.
All written by the same people.
Oh my god, yeah. Max Visaggio writes everything.
But I'm gonna go next. Next comic I want to talk about is called Dark Arc from Aftershock. It's written by Cullen Bunn. It's actually about a second arc in addition to Noah's, and this arc carries monsters like vampires, harpies, gorgons, and unicorns are on there. But it said the reason that the unicorns are on there is because they were abandoned by God. And
It's like an arc for all of the evil sentient creatures. That's dope. I like that concept.
yeah, it's an arc for the supernatural, and the main character named Shrey is a sorcerer. Apparently an evil sorcerer, and he was charged by a demon to build the ark. Shrey was also told that if Noah's ark fails, then he and his family would die, and that if Noah's ark died, then the beasts on his ark would eat him, and if they succumbed to the flood, then he and his family would burn for all eternity. So,
Christ.
yeah, so he has like a gorgon constantly fly over Noah's ship to make sure that it is still out there. Otherwise, he's screwed.
Oh wow! Is this like a question? Is this comedic or is it played for straight? But we just find it comedic because of
It's played for straight.
Oh wow! Okay, I want to play.
But yeah, so Shrey and his family are the caretakers for all the beasts on the ship, and they have human sacrifices on the ship to feed the beast, and they have them chained up in this one room.
Holy shit! That's deep. I'm sorry. Holy crap! That's really serious.
Yeah, and they're being guarded by this winged lion, and the winged lion is actually in love with one of the female prisoners. So yeah, the monsters, of course, being monsters, all hate each other, and eventually it turns out that one of the monsters ends up getting murdered. So Shrey has to kind of find out who the killer is, while he's struggling to maintain order on the ark, because they see that, all right, somebody can be killed on the ship. Shrey's not that doesn't have that much control, so they're growing bolder in their defiance of him.
Oh, that's interesting. So, are they kept like are humans kept like livestock, or is it just like this? Or do we not know like how many humans they have on board to use as sacrifice?
They show one room with the sacrifices in it, but there could be others. I don't know. I think there was 8 in the room that they showed. But yeah, it's a very fun book. The art is kind of simple, but with the inking and coloring, it works really, really well.
And the story sounds intriguing because I honestly have no way of predicting anything that'll happen in that story.
Yeah.
Like I gotta see this, like Dark Arc. I gotta see this now.
Yeah. Again, it's from Aftershock. It's really good.
I've seen this before. So that's what this is about. Okay.
Switch, Just Some Guy. Have you guys heard of this?
Yeah, I've seen it in a comic book store. I thought about picking it up, but it wasn't.
I've seen the art around for sure.
Yeah. Ooh, I like this. Damn.
Yeah.
I might have to check it out. It wasn't on my radar too much. I flipped through it, but I didn't really read it, so I kind of let it go to the side. But I'll check it out. It sounds like it's really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like something that, like, especially if you're like into like horror stuff, like I am. Because like I'm really into horror stuff.
Yes, he is very much into horror things.
I tell Switch all of these things he's not interested in too. It's like,
yeah. So they are they're on a ship, obviously, and they have very limited resources. So the monsters, while all the monsters are in the hold, they're just talking about eating each other. Like the moment anybody shows a weakness.
I like the idea that like these monsters were just like, yeah, you're terrible, so we're just gonna eat you. You failed us.
All right, Switch. We have to read one of these comics here and see, and just for the show.
There's been some good ones recommended. I'm definitely
the monster that gets killed is I forget what it's called, but right before, the night before it got killed, it threatened the vampire clan because it claimed to know some secret that they were hiding, and that it might end up telling Shrey what their secret was, and it could get them cast off of the Ark. And then next morning, it's dead.
Oh wow!
So it's like kind of got like a mystery element too.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Ooh, okay. I definitely got, because like I said, it seems like a comic. I don't know how to predict something like this, so I couldn't. So yeah, I definitely want to like read this. The art alone is honestly worth my attention, because I really like horror shit. So.
Well,
all right, Switch, you're up next.
For sure. Trying to think of trying to like go through my list here. Okay. Here's one that I like. It's called. It's a weird one because it's like if you like B movie plots that are just like over the top and ridiculous and don't mind like just kind of throwing everything at the wall and like seeing what sticks. Like I would recommend I'm going to recommend Zombie Tramp for that. And
I was reading that earlier, actually.
I've definitely heard of it. I've not read it, but I've heard of it.
It's a really fun series.
It's manga or American?
It's American. It's done by Action Lab Comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like there's a lot of manga influence. So I'm gonna recommend both series that they do because like they're kind of tied. Is Zombie Tramp as well as Vampblade. Vampblade is both of them are very uncensored books, so you're gonna see the gore, you're gonna see the violence, you're also going to see like uncensored bits of both like men and females, because Action Labs has like ratings for mature, and these books both meet the mature standard. And they've indicated like, so the idea is with Zombie Tramp we followed Janie Bell. Well, it's a new character now. Now it's Angel, but before it was Janie Bell. Who? So what it is there's these demons that want to come to Earth, and they have to choose a vessel to become to basically become them eventually. The first person was Janie Bell, so she would basically become the zombie tramp, and then over time would become like the queen, basically like the queen of the kaiju. And so like she would be able to summon zombies at will. She would be able to use like magical spells. She could even like not die. If she actually died, she could transfer her actual essence to a nearby living body, kill it immediately, and then like be reborn there. Like she was straight up like on the death rows of becoming like God Emperor eventually before like some people stopped her at some point, and then now we're with Angel, which is the current zombie tramp. So there's like an ever looming threat of who's going to become like the actual kaiju queen.
Well,
And
does it have monster girls in it?
yes, there are a lot of monster girls in it.
Switch, that's what I like too well.
I do. There's monster girls. Now with Vampblade, Vampblade is so it's in the same universe, and this one follows the you follow like Kylie, I think her name is, or Katie, I can't remember. I just usually call her the Vampblade because that's what it is. Is the Vampblade is pretty much like imagine Witchblade. Now throw it every level of like censorship that you can.
Oh, is it okay? Is it wait? Is it like current Witchblade or 90s?
No, like classical like 90s Witchblade.
Okay, current Witchblade is like sad woman. It's like sad woman who cries a lot. It's like sad white woman who cries a lot.
Yeah. So the Vampblade is chosen by, well, there's the blade called the Vampblade that chooses somebody, and then like it bonds with their soul, similar to like the Witchblade does. It bonded with a comic book nerd girl, so there's constant references. Actually, in the last issue, she literally made a reference to how The Last Jedi sucks.
Okay,
that's worth buying it alone.
Exactly.
Yeah, like that alone is worth buying it. Wait, so
she went back in time to an alternate dimension. Also, it's an alternate dimension because she found out recently about like different dimensions, and she went back in time. And one of the things she asks herself, like, because she now they're at the point where her other dimension self is like, since you've shown up, shit has just been getting worse and worse for me. And it's just like, okay, but before I leave, I have a question to ask you. This is like, see, The Last Jedi is going to suck. And she's like, so she's like, what do you mean? He's like, is Rian Johnson the one still directing it here in this universe, in this timeline? Yes. Yeah, you're screwed. It's fucked. It's like, do not go. Objectively, it will be bad.
Okay, who is this writer? Like, we need to know who the writer is.
I don't know who it is, but I love them.
Like,
who's the writer? You gotta tell us which.
Let me see if I can bring up the writer's name here for Vampblade. For Vampblade, the writer is the one who wrote, like, the one who writes Vampblade. If it actually wants to load for me.
You know what the art for Dark Arc reminds me of? It reminds me of The Darkness, if anyone's familiar with that comic.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't they make a game out of it too?
Yeah, I never got a chance to play it though. But yeah, it reminds me of The Darkness. Okay, with the monster designs and everything, it looks really good.
Vampblade, Jason Martin.
Yeah, Jason Martin is the one who writes it. I'm not sure if he also writes Zombie Tramp, but like the two of them are like the two characters have done like crossovers all the time because the two characters show up in the same stories all the time because they're part of the same universe.
Have you interacted with this person before?
Not that I'm aware of.
Let me see. Because I know that like comic book what is it, like publishers like Udon who do like who do make comic books and stuff like that, they do not have a good relationship with the rest of the industry.
No, Dan Mendoza is the one who does Zombie Tramp, and the one who does Vampblade is Jason Martin. Yeah, like but the artist I think is the same on both of them.
And who's it published by again?
Action Lab Comics.
Okay.
Actually, surprisingly, they're also the same guys that do the comic adaptation of Ladybug.
What is?
Huh.
I've heard of Ladybug.
Yeah, that's the French Sailor Moon like anime cartoon thingy.
Oh, I remember that.
It's like the one that's done in CGI style, but the apparently that Ladybug series is really popular in France, and it's starting to get some level of popularity in America too. So, I mean, I'm surprised that like IDW didn't take that up. Usually, they're the ones that take up TV adaptations.
Okay, just some guy. You're up next.
Sure. So I've got another manga that is technically not manga, but is manga, called Radiant. It's by this guy named Tony Valente, and Tony Valente is a Frenchman who created a French manga that is the first French manga to ever be published in Japan. It's
I've heard
actually
of this.
it's licensed here by Viz. That's where I saw it. I was out in Boston last year, and I was going around to different comic shops, and I saw the first volume out there, and I saw the cover of it. It looks really interesting, and I'm like, okay, all right, but this name is clearly not Japanese. So what's going on here? It's written Japanese way, so it's right to left, reads like that, looks like it. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, let me check this out. So when I got back home, I went ahead and bought the volume. I saw it in the bookstore, and it's about this kid named Seth who is in this world that's full of these monsters called nemesis or nemesis. And what happens is that if you get touched by one of these things, you get contaminated. And if you survive it, you become cursed, but you also gain the ability to use magic. And in the universe is called Fantasia. That's what the magic is called. And so you can become like a magician or a sorcerer. And Seth is the main character, a teenage boy who survives the attack. And he is able to do something that the rest of them can't do. So in their world, in order to sort of harness his power, you have to put on these gloves that'll let you control it. He's able to use the magic without the gloves. Okay. So the whole story is basically him trying to figure out the source of these nemesis and being able to basically destroy them. And he's going on this kind of fantastic sort of One Piece style journey to find them. So it's a really interesting story. I like it. The art's good. It looks like it's Japanese. There are a couple of giveaways that'll let you know that it's not. It's usually the screen tones that'll give it away. The pacing is kind of similar to the early volumes of Naruto, where it's really fast, really great.
Okay, I'm definitely into this.
Yeah, it's got a great cast. It's got some nice humor. You're familiar with sort of like what's a good old one, like Slayer's kind of style of humor to
Oh, I
it.
love Slayers. Yeah.
So it's really fun. And again, it's this French guy who's doing it, and he's doing it pretty much all by himself. He's done, I think, 11 volumes that are out in France and Japan. There are 3 out here.
Oh wow!
Maybe 4. I think the 4th one's coming out soon. The release schedule is always weird with Viz, so I'm never quite sure. And it's actually got an anime. The anime's already been dubbed here, so
Nice.
it's on Crunchyroll. So I would check it out. It's a really cool story. The art is fantastic. The story is pretty well paced. You got some great villains. There's a guy in there that's there's like a group of pirates. Basically, they just go from these town to towns because all these towns are like held up in the sky by these air balloons. Okay,
I like
and they go from like town to town, like harassing them, and they end up going and get caught by his one-armed teacher. She's just this lady who's like a really powerful sorcerer, but she's only got one arm.
this is dope. I like.
And for whatever reason, the guy looks like an old macho man, right?
Yeah, what's the name?
Randy Savage.
What's the
Yes,
name? I didn't get I couldn't hear it because I had to take a phone call. What's it called?
Radiant.
Radiant.
Radiant. I heard of that actually.
I've heard of it. I tried reading it. I couldn't get into it. I'll try again.
Let me see.
Yeah, the first volume is a little slow. That first intro story is a little slow, but the next one after that picks up.
Oh
I
wow,
like the art style. It's very nice.
art's incredible.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Jesus. Like so many good recommendations with like really great art.
Yeah.
It's good, Corrupt, because you're up next.
All right. So the next one, mine is actually just a straight up manga. It's called Hell Warden Higumi. And
I've been reading that.
yes. Okay, so like Mr. E knows what I'm talking about. So Hell Warden basically a long time ago, a bunch of evil spirits were released from hell by this spirit culty old man, and he released like countless evil souls from hell. And so the Hell Warden are this clan who, I don't want to spoil too much, but basically the Hell Wardens are these clan of people whose job it is to find the spirit, find the evil souls, and basically send them back to hell. And the characters and the art is really good. I like the powers are really unique too, because like the main character has like all of these hands, and the way to seal a demon and seal a soul back, to send a soul back to hell, is to like cut off their hands. So when he cuts off their hands, he like takes their powers. It's really dope. Like holy crap. Like it's like before it starts, there's a few chapters where it starts off like kind of Monster of the Weekish, but like there's a lot of character development, and then it sort of slowly opens up into like a much larger, much more interesting, much more complicated plot.
Yeah, there's one monster that actually killed his father and his aunt, the main character's father and aunt, and like he's been like killing the members of this clan for like 100 years.
Yeah, like on their what is it, their 12th birthday, he comes to kill them or something.
I think it's the 12th birthday of their firstborn child.
Yeah, and he just comes and like kills them and then just leaves.
Oh crap, that's pretty harsh.
One of so before it gets really into it, there's one monster called she's like a kitsune, and basically she had and she's one of the evil souls. She had a child, but she never felt attached to it, so she just threw her baby into like the ocean. And then like people like hated her, and she was like despised, and then she went to hell, obviously. And when she came back, she's just like this insane like kitsune demon that just goes around like killing children. And like, because what she'll do is she'll possess the body of a mother and then have that mother kill their children. It's really dark. It has like a lot of really dark moments, but the Hell Warden himself, like even with like really like horrible people like her, he feels a lot of regret and sympathy for the sinners that he sends to hell, because like, I mean, look, nobody wants to go to hell, right?
Oh wow,
That sounds really interesting. I'm gonna have to check this out.
Yeah,
I really liked it, but I think it got canceled.
Did it get canceled? It's on the Viz app, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's on the Shonen Jump app, but I think like the last chapter it said something like goodbye or the finale or something.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh, that does suck, because I was kind of.
But it ended on a really weird note.
Well, you know, in Japan, they don't give you any time. So if it's like, oh, it's not doing well, next chapter, that's it. We got to wrap it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Have any of you guys seen the latest chapter for 7 Deadly Sins?
I haven't started checking that out yet.
I actually haven't been following 7 Deadly Sins. I've sorry.
But I just want to say that the last chapter of that manga was a massive twist. Like, you do not see that shit coming at all.
No, you didn't. It was really good too. Oh man,
you've seen it?
Yeah, like I did. So, I know that one of the members of the clan like turns traitor, but that's all I know. Like, I didn't read it after that part. I haven't gotten a chance to read the rest of them after like she kind of turns traitor.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I guess it's back to me, and the next book I want to recommend is Lock and Key. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about Lock and Key, but
I've heard about that one.
I think that's the only thing. I think that's the only thing tonight I really haven't heard of, actually.
Yeah, so for those of you watching who don't know, Lock and Key is about the Locke family. And it starts out, they're pretty typical family, like the older brother like is constantly getting in a fight with his dad. But one day, their father ends up getting killed because one of his students bursts into his house and sticks a gun in his face. And he's asking about these keys, and the father has no idea what he's talking about. So um, the kid ends up shooting the dad and killing him. And the family now, they're each devastated by this in their own ways, and they're each dealing with it. But they move out to New England to get a fresh start to their family's old mansion called Key House. And what they discover there is that the house is filled with these magical keys, each with its own unique ability. And the thing about the keys is that one of the keys of these magical keys is to the front door of the house. And that key ensures that nobody over the age of 18 can remember the magic that goes on in there. But there's also a danger to the house because a creature from their father's past um, is lurking there. And he is the one that kind of wormed its way into the student's mind and convinced him to go after the dad. But their dad couldn't remember about the keys or even warn them about the danger because obviously their dad is over 18, so his knowledge of the keys was taken from him by the house.
That's kind of interesting. I like the
Yeah.
so the art. The art kind of reminds me of Berserk a little bit. The art-
Anyway,
it-
this creature is after a very specific black key, and it's also after the children. Now, there are a bunch of other keys in the house that they could use to protect themselves, but again, like they have never been to this house before, so they are just now finding this out, and they also have to deal with the creature that is coming after them that's been waiting for revenge for like 20 years.
Wasn't there also like a thing where like I remember hearing that it was eventually going to be getting adapted into a TV show or a movie or something.
Yes, I have heard that as well.
Yeah, and I mean it was a really popular series back when it was running. It's supposedly done now.
Yeah, it is done now.
Yeah.
I finished the whole thing, but I highly recommend it. Like the keys in this series are freaking crazy. There is one key that unlocks a door to like the garden, but if you go through the door, your soul will leave your body by force.
Okay.
Another key allows you to open up somebody's head and uh, take out and remove things. Like you can take out aspects of your own personality, and then you just won't feel that thing anymore. There's one key that's actually like this giant wooden key that is actually the key to a stained glass window in the house. And if you unlock the stained glass window and go through it, then you will emerge out of the house as a giant.
Yeah, I might have to check this out. I've seen it around, but I've never read it.
Yeah.
There's another key that attaches to like this crown, and when you wear the crown, you have the ability to control shadows.
I mean, I've heard of I know people who are really into the series too. Like I had a friend of mine who was so into it. He actually got a tattoo of one of his favorite keys. So
That's a little too committed for me.
I cannot recommend this book enough. It's awesome, and it's got a lot of good horror elements for those of you who like that.
Yeah, it definitely feels it feels to definitely have a very gothic nature to it from the art style alone.
Yeah. So Switchpoint, you're up next.
Yes. Well, okay. So, let's go something a little bit more, a little traditional in the shonen style of things. So if you are a fan of fairy tale and like Hiromashima's style of like art,
Ooh, I do.
I recommend checking out Eden Zero.
I knew Eden Zero.
I knew that the moment I heard Hiro Mashima, I knew this was coming.
It's like, yes.
So I'm a big sci-fi nerd, so one of the things is like I'm always like looking for just a fun, like over the top sci-fi series just to enjoy. And well, you don't get more over the top than Hiramashima. We're talking about the guy who literally decided, hey, Natsu needs a power boost. Hey, let's give him a golden flame to power him up in the middle of the fight. So like that is why I was like when he was asked, oh, okay, well, why are you writing Eden Zero? Now he said, well, no one's doing a sci-fi series right now. So I'm going to make a sci-fi series.
Yeah, like no one is. A lot of it is kind of modern day, and not even really fantasy as much, right? It's mostly just modern day stuff. Because I was looking for some fantasy, but I couldn't find any.
Yeah.
Well, there's Black Clover that's doing fantasy.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is. You're right.
Now, I mean, I know he's gotten like some criticisms, like because some of the characters are similar to like some of the other characters. Like he does, like, but honestly, like once you start reading it, you don't even think about that. You're like, no, man, these characters are their own characters. These are going on. It's fun. I think like the thing that I enjoy about it too is like one of the things that I'm going to definitely give credit to Hiramashima for is people are like, oh, his stories are just so generic. I'm like, but that's part of the fun. It's the fact that he doesn't try to like be over the top. He doesn't try to deconstruct things. He doesn't try to like go outside of, he doesn't try to go outside of like what they're almost, he knows what he relishes in the fact that this is a shonen and I want it to be a shonen.
Like he can make a solid story basically.
Yeah. And he 100% like just relishes in that alone. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I want something more. And I'm like, well, then go read something more from somebody else who actually like puts more, who's willing to put more thought into it, and like go try to find the Grant Morrison of like the mangas if you want to. Not that they don't exist, they do. But like Hiramashima admits that he's not doing that. He's trying to write a fun story, and that's what he's going to do. Like, yeah, he's going to have the tropes. He's going to have the main character save the girl. He's going to have the girl go wacko. Maybe she is like amazing with guns, but she sucks when it's like personal combat. Like he's going to like relish in the fact that he's going to relish in the fact of the silly shonens and the silly tropes that come with it, because that's what he wants to write, and I think that passion oozes through if you're actually into those style of stories.
Yeah, I can get behind that. That sounds fun.
I'm definitely enjoying it.
Oh, Eden Zero is fantastic. The first like 2 or 3 volumes are already translated in English to pick up if you want to. But you can like find the other chapters online. It's like up to I think 40 some issues now, and if you want to read it online. So
one thing about Hiramashima is that he doesn't shy away from fan service. He said, like, oh yeah, people like fan service, so I'm going to give them fan service.
He literally had an entire chapter where there was like a whole room of naked girls.
Just to do it.
He doesn't show anything either. He just kind of has it there for like a plot device because he can. He's like, well, people like fan service, so here you go. That's the only reason he does it. He doesn't care.
I mean, it's his book, and it's not like Marvel, where you have people at the top dictating what you got to do.
Embrace fan service. That's what, like, honestly, that's probably what would help American comics. Fucking embrace fan service. It's funny. Like, if you look at a lot of things that young chicks, that a lot of younger women like, right? Like, it's usually like really sexy women that are scantily clad and like sexy dudes. Like
cosplayers will intentionally make sexy a costume that is not sexy.
Yeah, seriously. Exactly. Like they'll take something like Sonic the Hedgehog and make a really sexy version, like over-sexualized version of it. Like if like for The Sims 4, right? That has like that player base is largely young women. Most of the mods for that are just like super sexualized, scantily clad women and hot dudes. It's like seriously, like this is just embrace fan service. Stop listening to people on Twitter.
Well, it's not only that you have to embrace the fan service. I mean, like Hiramashima clearly knows how to get both the girls and the guys, because like countless times he has guys that are walking around shirtless.
Yeah, they're all buff and ripped and attractive, and they're walking around shirtless. Yeah, you're right.
Like, not to mention that like the girls get into fan service moments on a regular basis. He's like, I want to point out that literally Natsu as a main character does not wear a shirt.
No,
He has a
That's his
vest.
defining features.
he never wears a shirt.
He literally just has a vest and a scarf.
And then you have
Gray.
Gray, who strips down on a regular basis.
He doesn't even know he's doing it. It just happens.
Like, I'm sorry, but if that's not there for fan service for ladies, I don't know why you're doing it. Like, I'm sorry. This is a guy who knows what this is a guy who knows his audience and knows what to give them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and
It's better
this
than
day and
Marvel,
age,
who
like-
actively despises their audience and refuses to give them what they want.
actually, I find that funny because he actually, Hiro Mashima's actually friends with the head of Marvel right now.
What Joe?
He used to have
Not Joe. The other one.
Tom Brevoort.
Not Tom Brevoort.
CB Cebulski.
CB Cebulski. Yeah, you know CB Cebulski.
Like,
He used to take his friend, sit him aside, and explain a few things.
yeah, like that. You don't have your freelancers act like idiots on Twitter. Holy shit!
You know, the conversation is probably like, that conversation is like, you're my friend, CB, but it's like, and I will not go into personal discussions with you because I feel like I would just come off rude because he's Japanese.
Yeah, so like, dude. Oh man, like whenever I go, like I just can't go on Twitter. Like I can't, like I somewhat dread reading comics sometimes because it's like, oh god, is it gonna be somebody who doesn't know how to write worth of shit? Or is it gonna be the same is it gonna be the same person who like writes every other book in the same way with characters who all talk the exact same way?
Well, I think one thing. Okay, you know what should be an exercise, in writing comics, is like, okay, we talked about Hiro Mashima and how he likes to write like shonen, and he relishes in the shonen style writing. Heck, like even Akira Toriyama does it, like when he does Dragon Ball, right? Okay, so here's an exercise. Before you start doing deconstruction stories, I want you to tell just a basic story.
Yeah, that would be nice. Just a basic story with a basic structure and a basic like hero's journey.
They can't do it.
Yeah,
Because if you can't do that, you have no business writing a deconstruction.
the problem is that a lot of them don't really know how to look outside of themselves. That's why a lot of their characters are self-inserts.
Yeah.
Well, the other is that most of the stories they're reading are deconstructions, because when you think about it, most of the American books that have come out, especially superhero books since the 80s, definitely since Watchmen, have been deconstruction stories.
Oh yeah, that's
So,
actually right.
so that's literally what you've seen for like 2 decades.
And so
I mean, like you'll occasionally get something like the Superman and his son storyline, where like the Superman and the family storyline, where it's him and his son and him training his son, which is more of a reconstruction of the hero and the hero's journey and him passing on his knowledge to his son.
All right. On that note, I just have to say, I hate you, Bendis.
so
See, he used to be good. He used to be good, and he got.
I will still recommend it, Spider-Man run.
I remember Justin Guy, you did a review of a book he wrote about a tattoo. And it was a chick who had a tattoo, and there was like 2 or 3 pages where the dude was talking about how much he liked her tattoo.
Just Bendis.
This is awful beyond awful.
I think he lost it somewhere around Civil War. It's like when he just completely went off the rails.
See, I wouldn't say that because his run on Miles Morales was good.
Here's
Miles.
honestly, here's what I like. I like Miles. I think I like Miles too, but here's honestly what I think. I think he just recycles his format because he thinks, well, this has worked for me before, so it's going to work again. It's just him recycling the same content over and over and over again. Because I mean, it works for him, and he probably figures, I don't want to have to learn to write another way, so I'm just going to keep producing the same thing. That's why you get dialogue that repeats itself, like him just talking about being on top of a rooftop and describing that he's on top of a rooftop.
I want to point out, like, the thing is I know he's a good writer because I always point to that one issue where we hear like we're in the head of Green Goblin back in the Ultimate Spider-Man run, and that one issue, we see like how crazy Norman Osborn actually is. Like he's actually talking to himself while he's also talking to Peter Parker. And there's certain things like going through his head is like, no, you're a monster. No, I'm not a monster. Am I a monster? What's a monster? Oh, there's that Peter Parker guy. He's Spider-Man. Is Spider-Man our son? No, wait, he's not our son. Is he our son?
See, what you know, that what you just described, right? That what you just said. He does that with every character now.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, the reason that one worked is because like we've already established previously that like Green Goblin is crazy. So it actually worked like in that one, like that heavy dialogue, because we're seeing a specialty type of dialogue where this is all going through Green Goblin's head. So like when he's actually speaking to Peter, he's talking normally, but like in his head, it's just like 100 things are going through at once because he's like slowly going crazier and crazier. And it worked for that one issue. And it's just like, why can't you like put that level of effort into everything else? Not just, because each one of those word bubbles wasn't even like a separate panel. Like where it wasn't even a separate panel. Those were all actually like him going through the same, like it was in the same panel and him trying to like, before actually speaking to Peter, almost like him going through the mind of like, how sane am I right now?
Like that would, like you said, that would be really interesting and really cool.
Yeah. I don't think I saw that scene, but it sounds amazing.
It does actually sound really good, but the thing is, now he sort of exported that style to pretty much everything. And yeah, Justin Guy is right. Like they don't really know how to write any other types of stories. I mean, you can look at other media and get inspiration from that, but I don't think they even do. But I don't think the media, honestly, I just feel like they don't care.
Well, the media does the same thing. And like if you watch a lot of the shows that they would probably watch, it's the same kind of deconstructed storytelling. It's all taking something and going, oh, let's tear it apart. It's like, okay, thank you, Scar. Now somebody go get another alchemist to fix what you broke.
Exactly.
Because it's like you can't all do the same thing. So
like Star Wars Discovery, which is basically a deconstruction of Star Wars.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Star Trek. I'm retarded. Star Trek.
I still love the Star Trek Discovery is STD. Like
that was a bad decision. But
like,
so
no one at marketing said that would like you can't tell me no one at marketing like looked at that and were like, this might be a bad idea.
They saw it. They didn't care.
Oh man.
Like, well, yeah. I mean, exactly right. It's like I hate to say that, but yeah, you're right. A lot of the media they consume they're deconstructions. They're deconstructions and tearing down of older established tropes and storytelling devices.
Yeah.
And it's a
So
thing.
So just some guy. You're up next.
Yeah. So mine is yet another manga, one that also doesn't get talked about that much, but it was recommended to me by one of my viewers, Dr. Stone.
Oh, I've read that.
I love this. I did a video about it earlier.
Dr. Stone. Yeah, I've read that.
Yeah, like I said, like I think you've done it. I think there's like maybe 2 or 3 other people have talked about it. I binged it on like one weekend.
Yeah.
This was before the Viz thing came out, so I just found it online. I bought the first volume, and I'm like, oh no, I can't just do one. This is like Jay's potato chips. Once you pop, you can't stop. So I gotta go online and read this whole thing. I caught up to it. I'm like, damn.
Dude, main character meditates for like 1,000 years.
Yeah. So let's set it up for him, so the people who are listening know what it's about. So basically, at one point, everyone on Earth turns to stone. Like there's this meteor that comes down. There's a bright light in the sky, and then everybody turns to stone.
I don't think it's a meteor. I think it's like just a wave that washes over the planet.
Yeah, but it is this bright light that goes off.
Yeah,
and they all see it, and as soon as they see it, boom, they turn to stone. So the main character seems like it's going to be this kid named Taiju, who is like the big muscly kid. He's dumb as rocks, but he's like super strong, and he's got this super smart friend named Suku,
but the thing about
who basically becomes the main character after like the first volume.
Yeah, the thing about Taiju is he's big and he's strong, but he won't fight.
That's true. So he's not a violent person. He's just very strong, but he is a protective type of person.
Yeah,
and he's got this girl that he likes. named, it's a very difficult Japanese name. It's Yuzuriha. Jesus, complicated Japanese names.
And just as he's about to confess to her,
His
bam.
love, he gets frozen. So Senku keeps count while he's frozen for thousands of years. They wake
like
up and it's like
500,000 years.
yeah, they wake up it's like 5700 something, okay? So it's like 5730, 5740, something like that. He has kept count per second the entire time, right? So he's the first to wake up as far as he knows, and he sort of discovers that there's this sort of chemical interaction that happens with, I believe it's lye, or is it nitric oxide?
I think it's nitric acid.
Nitric acid, right? And that sort of helps dissolve this. So he spends time, like over a year, trying to figure out how to unlock this. And this is what I really like about the manga, is that it is everything that the Unstoppable Wasp wants to be, because he
Yes.
actually makes science fun. And the cool part is Senku fails numerous times,
But he
Yeah.
keeps trying.
and he keeps trying, and eventually he discovers stuff.
Yeah,
So
but here's the thing though. Taiju, Senku doesn't save Taiju. Taiju actually comes out of his shell on his own as well.
Yeah.
yeah, so there are people who are just spontaneously waking up. However, he is exposed to the nitric acid. That's how he wakes up.
And
Is that his body is near it.
what's funny is that Taiju actually gives him the I think the inspiration to free everyone else, right?
Yeah, because eventually they free a number of people, and they end up freeing the main villain, or one of them. And the cool thing about the main villain, his name is Tsukasa.
Yeah.
Tsukasa is a good guy who wants to kill people. So he wants to kill everyone who like treats
Yeah.
people badly, particularly
Yeah.
this guy who treated him like garbage, and as a result
Yeah.
of not helping him, his sister dies. So he goes around destroying the stone statues of all the adults, and then he steals this nitric acid formula and
Yeah.
basically uses this to free all these strong kids that he thinks will help him build
Yeah,
his ultimate society.
Essentially, his mindset is the old world had a lot of problems. If I selectively choose who comes back, we could avoid those problems.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a good world basically.
Oh,
And then as it expands, the so Taiju and I'm going to call her by her last name because it's easier, Ogawa, they go and they like infiltrate his little group. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, Senku goes and they end up finding a village of humans
So wait,
who weren't turned into stone.
there's something else though. The reason that Senku is able to escape is because Tsukasa actually kills him. And then the thing about the petrification process is that whenever you're unpetrified, like any cracks and thing in the stone, like they shut and you get this kind of like scarring. So after like Tsukasa breaks Senku's neck, there's a part of Senku that the petrification never came off of. So they put the formula on it, and his neck snaps back into place.
And he knew that this was there, so he's basically planned ahead for this to happen.
It's awesome. I love this so much.
What really brings it out though is when he finds this village of humans who have survived, and somehow after thousands of years their Japanese has not changed, so he's able to understand them. That's one little part that caught me. It's like you've got everything else seems to match, but the language didn't change
Right.
after thousands of years.
Yeah,
That's not realistic.
Man, I mean, well,
I mean, suspend to the disbelief.
come on, like to be fair though, they're like this one dude like meditates in stone for like hundreds and hundreds of years. So I'll
Hey.
give him that.
If you're gonna give me the science formula and everything, you're gonna have to do the language thing too. Sorry, you got it. You can't have that. And then screw this other
I'll
part
give
up.
you that. I'll give you that. You're right. You know, I'll
But what's really fun about that is that they're basically the descendants of these people who were in space, and
They're
so
on the
when they
International
land,
Space Station.
right? So when they land back on Earth, and they first they lose contact with Earth, they can't figure out what's going
Because
on.
the wave happened.
Right. And then when they land on Earth, they realize that they're basically the only ones left. So they end up essentially creating this new society. And these people have never encountered this technology before. So you end up with some really interesting moments. Like, for example, they think that these people have eye disease. And all it is that they have bad eyesight.
Yeah.
So Senku has to fashion eyeglasses for this girl, and then later another character while he's fighting, he's able to use the same thing to be able to see. But it's just that kind of thing where he has to fashion these eyeglasses. So how do you do this? And each time he sort of figures out how to do this, you have this little sort of element in the actual manga where it's like, glasses acquired or gunpowder acquired. All
Yeah.
these little cool things of how you would actually have to do this. How would you rebuild
And
society?
it's like you need to invent this in order to get to this, in order to get to this.
Right, and he walks you through it, and that's the really cool part about it, is it
And
walks you through it.
there's another character called Chrome that he meets that is from that village, and they see science, but they call it sorcery because that's what they think it is because they're primitives. And it turns out that Chrome has been like collecting materials and learning things on his own, because even in a stone world, someone will come along who will want to figure out how things works and invent science again somehow.
Exactly. So it's a really cool manga, and I'm just shocked that it's not getting as much play as it should. I know the anime is scheduled to come out a couple of months from now. Was it July? So maybe that'll help get some attention to it.
Yeah, the one thing I love is that it's just like the way that Krem's mind works, because Senku invents a gear to help them when they're cranking something, and then Krem sees it and like he gets this idea going in his head, and then he takes the village craftsman, and they like work for like 3 days, and then they come back, and it's like, yeah, Krem from that one gear reinvented the water wheel.
Yeah, I love that. I'm trying not to spoil too much for anybody because it's so clever how all this stuff is done. That's kind of the joy of it. Like I said, it's what Unstoppable Wasp wishes it was, because it's actually showing the steps that you would have to go through to do it. Now, obviously, it's sped up and there's some fantasy element to it, so it's not exactly the way that it would be, but it's just playing it out in a very logical way, and then you're seeing them fail. And then while they're doing this, they still have to deal with Tsukasa wanting to basically get the gunpowder and just wreak holy hell over them. So there's this battle of like, we have to build this scientific society first so that we can be able to take this guy out, because even though he's a good person, he has good intentions, what he's doing is absolutely horrific. So it's just this insanity going on. And then when I stopped, he's a little bit of a spoiler. He's being betrayed by one of his groups, that one of the guys in his group who turns out to actually be a bad guy. So
because Tsukasa and Senku, they eventually come to a truce.
Right. So it's a really fun story. The art, by the way, is done by this guy named Boichi. This dude is like, if you think the art for One Punch Man is good, this guy makes that dude look like he can't draw. Like, that's how good Boichi.
Really? Because the guy who redraws One Punch Man is amazing.
Oh, he is amazing, but Murata he has nothing on Boichi. Boichi is a whole other level.
Yeah, like the art for Dr. Stone is pretty intense. So
it's insane.
Every time I read this manga, do you know that clip from Jesse Pink from Breaking Bad where Jesse Pinkman just says "Science, bitch"? That clip always just pops in my mind whenever I read Dr. Stone.
Yeah, it's very good. It's really it's very well told. It's entertaining. It's fun. There's a nice mix of action, and that's the other thing, is that you don't expect there to be a lot of action in this kind of manga, but there's tons of action.
Yeah, you're thinking that you come in thinking that, oh, this is going to be like slice of life or something like that, and they're going to get into maybe like a few adventures every now and then, but no, there's like action.
Yeah, there's this one girl, Kohaku, who is like one of the strongest she's like really beautiful, but she's one of the strongest in the village. And like there's a tournament to determine who will be the next chief of the village, and whoever is the next chief of the village marries the high priestess, which is her older sister. So she keeps like winning every tournament just to make sure that none of the jerks from the village marries her sister.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a very common anime trope type of thing where
then we go into the
lesbian. But eventually they want to make it so that Chrome wins because he's a good guy and he's in love with her sister. So Chrome was up against the strongest guy in the village, and initially he's getting his ass kicked, but like he beats him using science, in a really amazing way. But when it's up against the final match, Chrome versus Senku, and Senku, he's planning on just forfeiting. Turns out Chrome was too beaten up and tired to go to his match, so Senku ends up winning by default.
Oh, well then.
But that sets up another element of the story. So it's
Yeah.
you think it ends there, but it really doesn't. But it's really well done, and there are a couple of other things that are kind of cool. For example, when Senku first gets to the village, and he starts hearing some of the stories that they're telling, he recognizes the stories. He recognizes some of their references. So they're doing kind of like what happens in Star Trek, where they're using references to like rubber bands and things like that. You're like, how would you even know what that is? You don't use that anymore.
It's like oral
And-
history passed down
and
from generation.
That's exactly what it is. But it's done, and a little bit of a spoiler, it's done deliberately. It's not an accident that they're doing this. That's intentional that they're doing this, that these stories have been deliberately passed down for a very specific purpose.
Should we give them the spoiler?
No, don't give them the spoiler, because that one's really
but
fun.
it's such a good twist.
Good spoiler.
It is, but if you do, then that kind of takes away the joy for people
Yeah,
to
and then
discover
it's
it on their own.
Yeah, and it's not as fun reading it because like Dr. Stone, like because the thing about Dr. Stone is like you said, like you don't expect it to like have a lot of fighting in it or a lot of action. You expect it to be kind of like slice in life with like crazy adventures, but no, it becomes something else entirely. So I think people should sort of discover that on their
And
own.
that was the part that really bugged me about the language thing, because it's like, if y'all passing down these stories, and eventually, telephone is going to happen, and y'all going to jack these stories up. So the fact that they're not jacking them up, that's one. But two, you're all still speaking the same version of Japanese. This is impossible. None of you can read or write. Like, you have to have changed.
I mean,
One
it's
word has
possible
to
that
be off.
it's possible that telephone did happen and some of the stories changed, but I think the message stayed the same, while the stories probably changed a little bit over time.
Well, when you think about some of the stuff that we use that are from, like ancient Greece, for example,
Yeah,
it's still relatively well known. And when you go back to the original story, it isn't changed that much, but that's partly because those stories are written down, so you can always go back to the source.
I mean, I know
Also-
language
also
has changed though quite a
The
bit.
time between ancient Greece and now is actually shorter than the time they were all petrified.
True.
Well, but like, okay, here, like, let's take the short time period and like just take like what's been changed. So, did you know that we actually used to call knives knives?
I do, because I know about how English works.
Yes. So, then we used to actually have a scenario. Did you know the number system actually came from a mixture of Arabic and what was the other one? Like, but it was one of them was Arabic and like other descents, right? So, yeah, no, this shows
knew that.
like, yeah. So here you go. This shows the evolution of like language as well as the evolution of like lettering and how systems work. So eventually, even if let's say like you don't write something differently, how you perceive it or how you actually say it might still change over time.
I mean,
Yeah, that happened in English. All of our vowels had a shift during
Yeah.
the like for like over a 400-year period. So the way that you look at words like house, the reason it's spelt that way is because it's spelled after a French spelling, but the way it was actually pronounced was hoose. And then it just mutated randomly, and they can't figure out why this happened. That's the fun part. They don't know why this happened. It just happened. So it's just like one of those weird things. So for that not to happen with the language, it's just like, oh, come on, you're getting all the science stuff right. I'm going online and check. You're getting it right, and you didn't do this part. Come on. I know they
How
have
much
to be able
research
to
do you
talk
think
to
they
each
do?
other, but
How much research do you think they do on the science stuff?
I would imagine the writer, what's his name, Inagaki.
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
imagine that he has to do a fair bit of it, because somebody's going to do what I'm doing and check, and they're
yeah,
going to tell them.
basically, and they're going to be like, "Hey, I'm watching you. You
I
don't
mean,
think?"
it might be one of the primary reasons that he even wrote the story to begin with, like that he actually checked up on stuff like that and it interested him and he wanted to start revolving around stuff like that.
And it's just a clever way of doing it. You take everyone out of the modern day, and then you put someone who knows what this is and put them in that environment and see what happens.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's been done before. It's just a very interesting way of doing it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly, like I said before, like I'm hungry for some fantasy and some heavy sci-fi, because like I know there's like a few fantasy books out, but like a lot of stuff is like modern day. So yeah.
Yeah. I think I would qualify Dr. Stone as sci-fi because, like, the wave that petrified everybody, that definitely was not a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that counts as sci-fi, but the setting itself is more fantasy. It has a more
You know what it
fantastic
reminds
element
me
to
of?
it.
You know what it reminds me of? Chrono Trigger a little bit.
Yeah, I mean they're not, but it is basically grounded in what you would actually be able to do. So it's not too fantastic, but it does have that look. I mean, they're walking around in like one heeled sandals. I don't know how they're not breaking their necks when they walk. They have these weird sandals. They don't even look like the little cogs. It's just like this weird little stump that they're walking on. And it's like you have
Well,
no traction to be able to walk
they
like
say
that.
that tengus, the Japanese monster tengus, wear sandals with only one uh heel as a way of showing their mastery over martial arts.
Is that why they always have that sort of peculiar stance whenever they walk?
Probably. I it's just a very weird choice. I get the stylistic choice. It's just a very like how would these people not die? Like you're just gonna just break an ankle because they don't have a lot of surface area. At the bottom, it's like the surface area is like the size of like a vitamin water bottle, like
And
the
now,
bottom of that.
and now you know there's gonna be a scene where like somebody just like walks and then all of a sudden they just like tip over and just their neck just shatters.
You know what I want? What I want is for someone to make those for real and then to have like a runway show with that just so I can watch the models fall. Because that would be hilarious. Them try to like do the little crosswalk. It's like you can't walk straight like that. And you're gonna try to switch. Just
Now I want to look up models just falling over while they're on the runway.
it is
All right.
hilarious. It is so wrong to laugh at, but it is so funny.
All right,
I mean-
before you do that, correct, you have to give us another recommendation.
Okay, so Junai Taisen Zodiac War. It's a manga. It's how can I describe it? Basically, like so every 12 years. So the characters are they each are a physical representation of the the zodiac. So of an animal in the zodiac. So you have the boar, who's like this like really hot busty chick with like with horns, and she has like two like tummy guns. And then you have like this hot dude dressed as like a rabbit. He's dressed as like a Playboy rabbit, and he's like this like muscular, super muscular hot dude. And he's called, I think, a necromonger. And basically what that is that when he kills you, you return he can raise you as a zombie. And this is and what happens is that every 12 years they have the Zodiac War. And that's where they go to like an abandoned city and they all just sort of like duke it out.
Why is my man in heels? He's topless with a cut off thongs and heels.
Yeah,
He has high heels.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Necromore. I think he's the Necromonger. I forgot what his powers are, but yeah, that's the main villain.
Only the Japanese.
And like you will like this character. Like I know you will like this character.
Oh, I already know how the Japanese do. They give you the
Alright.
weirdest ones, and then that's like the one that you like.
Exactly. It's like I like this character. I don't like you have straight dudes who are like, I love this character that like is obviously meant for like female fan service. And they're just like all over how much they love this character.
So this is a manga?
Yeah, it's a manga. It's I got it off of it's a manga and it's an anime. I got it off of the Viz app.
Okay, is it like a ongoing thing or is it just
I
short?
think it ended.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it is on
But
the back.
I think it might have ended, but I'm not sure. But yeah, like it's a really fun manga. Like I like the characters, and I like how it sort of swaps perspectives between like different characters. I mean, there's a main character, but they sort of like shift perspectives between different ones. So you have the bull, who's a guy who has horns, who's dressed like a matador and uses a fencing sword.
Oh yeah, okay. Here he is. Yeah, I see him.
The art is also really good.
This is a very detailed art. It kind of reminds me of, say, like Eye Shield 21 meets like maybe Fate or something. I don't know. Like
With Fate Stay Night, yeah.
Like I don't know. It's very like there's like that high detail like Eye Shield 21 has, but then there's like that kind of nice, almost, like nice sharpness, like from Fate or from like Persona or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who is Master Godai? Who is that?
I have no idea.
And he's a furry artist. What?
All right then.
Okay, that was a weird little side.
Corrupt. What was the name of your manga again?
It's it's Junai Tyson Zodiac War. What?
I will put the spelling in the chat there. So
Thank you, because
But yeah, the manga is you can find the manga on Viz apparently for this one. There is a preview there for you to check it out if you want to.
Manga by Akira Akatsuki.
Akira Akatsuki.
Akatsuki, thank you.
And the character designs are by Hikaru Nakamura.
Yeah, like I said, it's really fun. It's based on a novel, but it's really fun. And the characters all have like the thing about that I really like is that they all have like incredibly distinct designs that in some way reflects the animal they're based off of. Like the boar, the chick with the Tommy guns, right? Like she's
pretty hot.
She is pretty hot, but she also acts just like a boar, right? She just comes in and just shoots everything. Like there's no sort of finesse or sort of like strategy. It's just I'm just gonna kill everything with these two big ass Tommy guns.
All right then, I like it.
Yep. All right. So my next book is actually a book from the Big Two.
Oh, okay. Is it War of the Realms?
I should kick you out of my stream for that. No, it's Hawkman by DC Comics.
Oh, it's about reading that actually.
Yeah, it's by Robert Venditti and Brian Hitch. This has got to be the best book that DC is coming out right now, and it's probably leagues better than anything over at Marvel.
Wait, is it better than than Aquaman before they changed to
I'd say it's around the same level.
All right, because everyone raved about Aquaman, and I remember Englandine for months told people if they need to stop reading crappy comics and read Aquaman.
Yes, Aquaman was amazing, but Hawkman is equally as amazing. Now, I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with Carter Hall, and he reincarnates. But what's revealed in this book is that he's been reincarnating not just across time, but also across space. He's also been reincarnating on other planets. There's times where he's been Thangarian, Qatar Hole, but he's also been to planets like Ran. He's been even to Krypton, and it turns out that he's having these like apocalyptic visions of these like winged death machines, and he visits Madame Xanadu to try and examine these visions, and then he starts time traveling into his past lives and meeting his past selves, and it turns out he has to collect all these artifacts in order to piece out what's going on. He goes to the microverse with the Atom, and it turns out that there was an ancient hero who had the ability to fly in the microverse, and it turns out that was Carter Hall. And they find this ship there that allows him to essentially traverse the microverse. And at one point, he reincarnates into Krypton, where he meets Qatar Ol, who is a teacher, and actually he was the teacher of Kara Zor-El. And, you know, eventually he remembers that these winged death machines are actually tied to his first life, like his very, very first life. It turns out that he used to be a warmonger and a mass murderer until eventually he met someone that convinced him to stop. And he has to reincarnate over and over again until he saves as many lives as he destroyed. And he found a way to seal the Deathbringers, the people that he was the leader of, the essentially murdering warband. But eventually, they managed to come back, and Hawkman, he's fighting them, but he's only one man until eventually, and I'm not kidding, he summons all the other past versions of himself into the war, and it's amazing. You get classic Hawkman, you get Qatar Hol from Thanagar, you get the Kryptonian version, you get the one from Ran, who I can only assume was based off of the Rocketeer, based by the design, and you get like a really great, just like all out war for like 3 entire issues, which never happens in modern comics. Like whatever fighting starts, it's usually over in like 4 pages. But this one is just like an all-out war for like 3 issues. They even bring back the Dragon of Barbados, like the version of him that was from Dark Knight's Metal when he was like a giant winged monster.
Okay.
Yeah, like my description does not do this book justice. It's freaking amazing, and the art is really great as well. Brian Hitch does an amazing job. I cannot recommend this book enough. And it's really a shame because it's not getting nearly enough love because sales are down.
How far is it into the series?
I think like up to 12 issues.
Okay. So they
I'm not
relaunched it
sure.
last year?
Yeah, they relaunched it after Dark Knight's Metal.
Okay.
I think this came out after No Justice, I think.
No, man, Justice League No Justice.
Yeah.
That event could have been so much better.
Yeah, it could have, but Hawkman is great, and you guys need to be reading it like right now.
I'll have to look into it. I'll see if I can find the first issue.
All right. Switchpoint, you're up.
I mean, I'm trying to think here what other ones I would recommend. You know what? I'm gonna recommend the. I don't know if anyone here has read Weatherman. It's also by Image Comics.
I recall that.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's on a bit of a hiatus right now, but the first volume is out, and the actual comic itself was so okay. Here's kind of the premise: we follow a guy who's like a weatherman, right? And it's like this is years after like the Earth has been destroyed, and everyone's like living on Mars now. We find out that the weatherman is like fairly early on in the first issue. We find out that the weatherman is actually potentially was part of the terrorist cell group that destroyed the Earth. However, he doesn't remember. That's the twist. So everyone is after him for a crime that he doesn't remember committing, because after committing the crime, he found records that he might have erased his own memory.
Oh, so and he's like a completely different person now than he was when he destroyed the Earth. I'm guessing.
Exactly. So now this leads to the question of like, does he still face time for his crime, even though like he doesn't remember it, even though that time people want him to face is people want to kill him.
That's actually kind of an interesting like moral question, because it reminds me of an episode of Black Mirror where where this woman was basically put through like this sort of punishment and her and her boyfriend committed a crime, but her boyfriend killed himself. So as punishment for her, they run her through this messed up reality TV show where she's hunted for the amusement of the audience, and then afterwards she's told who she was, and then her memory is erased, and then she's put back into this room and hunted again, and the audience sees it, and then she's told who she was, and her memory gets erased again. And so it's like a weird loop of where someone who's technically at that point not even the same person is being punished for a crime, the person they were committed.
Yeah. Like, this is actually why this is why the story is kind of interesting to me, because like there's even a point where he's actually forced into a game show where people are allowed to are allowed to kill him over and over again, like virtually. And can you imagine what that actually like? Because his mind is actually hooked up to the machine, right, when they're doing it.
That's terrifying. Like it's also kind of cruel if you think about it, because the first time he's already been killed, he's already been punished, but now it's almost like them just like punishing him over and over again out of some sort of gratification.
Yeah. And like it's also like something to realize like what this world has evolved into becoming, and like what happened after the events of like Earth being destroyed, right? It's a very much there's very much kind of like a post-apocalyptic future kind of going on here, sci-fi.
So like cyberpunk, basically.
Yeah, very cyberpunk, and I like it. Like, I definitely recommend it for people who like that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's ever going to finish, sadly, because what happened was the actual the book went on hiatus after the first volume, and it hasn't really come back yet. Now, that doesn't mean it won't. I don't know if the writer is going through some stuff right now and just couldn't finish it, because I didn't hear any information that it was canceled. That's the thing. And so, I mean, I am hoping that it does actually continue on. I would love to see the actual conclusion of the story, because it was only supposed to be 12 issues, so it had a planned ending.
It's just that, so where would you, as in terms of a story so far, where would you rate it? Like what kind of rating would you give it?
I'd give it like around, at least from what I've read so far, I'd say like probably around an 8 out of 10. Like, it's very solid. It has me gripping and made me want like every issue afterwards and see what was going on. No, we're not talking about Dead Man Wonderland Demonic. We are talking about Weatherman.
I was actually kind of into that. It was actually a good show. It was actually a good manga. I didn't watch the anime very much, but I did like the opening for the anime. It was really creepy.
Yeah. But yeah, like if you haven't read the Weatherman yet, give it a go. At least give it a try.
I can see myself getting into that. I like the art. So okay, question though: is the art in the book similar to the art in the on the cover?
Yes.
Okay, because I like the style. It's very trippy.
I would say the art in the book is not quite as 100% trippy on all the scenes, but like there are some trippy moments in there.
So I won't feel like I'm on acid reading the book, basically.
Not 100%. No, we will have moments that are definitely like that to a degree.
Where I have to check
like,
what I do.
As an example, you'll have a moment where somebody might get sliced in half, and you like see a whole lot of blood flying on screen. But then other moments you'll have like very cartoony-esque style, like over design kind of stuff.
Is the blood like colored different? Is it like colored red, or is it colored like pink and blue and like all sorts of crazy colors?
It's a vibrant red.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the most trippy I think that you probably would have gotten, if you want my honest opinion, the most trippy you get is the one where he's like in the virtual reality world.
Yeah.
And because like of course you're in a virtual reality world, so they played around with that one a bit.
This sounds really fun. I'm going to be honest with you. I like the description. Everything sounds really cool.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a fun read. Like if they do continue on, I hope that I hope that we kind of get that conclusion we're looking for, and that it does actually kind of gives us all the information that we've been hoping for. because like you have people hunting him down, and you have like one person who's trying to protect him because she's been told to and stuff like that. And yeah, it's really great. And like they also don't like force anything, which I really liked. Like one cool thing was like we learned that the police chief that told the police officer to take care of him was like we learned that he was gay, and then he was like, but they never made a big deal out of it. He was just like, yes, I understand you lost loved ones. I lost a husband and I lost a child. Okay, I need you to put that behind you right now because I'm asking you to take care of him. Like, it's not some, oh, okay, like he's gay. Oh, well, we're woke. It's, yeah, I lost someone as special to me too. Please continue. I need you to do this job for me. Right. And it's just like little things like that that actually like make it feel more like a lived in world.
Like, yeah, you know what? I like. I gotta check. I'm looking at it now, and I'm looking at the different panels and stuff.
Yeah,
I like this. I can get into this, Switch.
All right, Justin, Guy, you're up next.
Sure. So mine is an older one, but it's just my favorite version of a particular character, and that is the Kelly Puckett and Damian Scott Batgirl run. This is when they introduced Cassandra Cain as Batgirl, and she got her own series.
Oh,
This is from the early 2000s, and it is just a fun read. If you guys haven't checked it out, you need to check it out. Ultimate visual storytelling, because at this point, Cassandra Cain, who is the daughter of David Cain and Lady Shiva, who are two assassins in the DC Comics universe, they have this child, and Cain raises her to be the ultimate assassin. He doesn't talk to her, he just teaches her all these different martial arts and has all these other people come in and teach her. So she doesn't speak. She learns how to read people's body language to the point where she can dodge bullets. So people think she has superpowers when she really doesn't. And she ends up at a very young age, I think it's 8, she goes on her first mission to kill someone, and she's so mortified by it because she can actually see the person dying. She can read the death in their body, and it scares her, and so she goes off and runs off. And later on, Bruce Wayne finds her and ends up letting her use this Batgirl costume that was used by the Huntress during the earthquake thing that had happened in Gotham City, where it became no man's land. So then Cassie picks up the costume eventually, and he lets her go ahead and basically be Batgirl. Now, he doesn't tell her who he is, but he does have her team up with the Oracle, or Barbara Gordon, who basically monitors her. And so these first couple of issues are basically just all-in-one stories of her going on various missions and just sort of dealing with different scenarios. One of my favorite is when she has to team up with Tim Drake as a Robin, and he like doesn't want anything to do with her because he's so freaked out by her past. And so it's just this really kind of fun interaction of him trying to avoid her but having no choice but to actually interact with her. Another really great one is when she decides that no one's going to die on that particular night. And so she goes about trying to stop all the murders, including stopping the guy from being executed. So there are all these sort of different interplays. At one point early in this run, she comes in contact with a telepath who can't read her mind. When he tries to read her mind, all he sees are fight moves. So he reorganizes her mind so he can read it, which kind of teaches her how to talk, but not really. So that's how they introduce her being able to speak in these like broken sentences. What I really love about it is that Damian Scott's artwork is very cool, very dynamic. I love that when she's in the Batgirl costume, her face kind of looks like one of those African statues. So, and that was how I knew that the artist was black, was because that's the only person who would do that. It was very slick. It was very slick. But then when she takes the mask off, like her entire face structure changes. So it's very weird.
She
But I
does
love it.
communicate through clicks, does she?
What? I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
I was wondering if that's where this was going, because I'm like, what?
But what's really fun about it is that when she's fighting these guys, like they're no threat to her. So she's like beating them up, and the expressions on her face, even with the mask, because you can sort of see her expressions, she's confused. Like, why didn't you dodge it? Why did you block it? Like she can't believe it's this easy to just like level everyone. And when you get to sort of the middle point, it's like issue 25, she ends up having the battle with Shiva. And that one's like a knockdown, drag out fight. And it is just phenomenal. And Lady Shiva eventually has to admit, like, once Cass is at her prime, she's probably going to be the best martial artist in the world. So that's how awesome this character is. The art is great. Kelly Puckett does a great job of, introducing you to this character, building her up, getting her to have connections with other characters. And eventually it kind of starts to move on to sort of giving her a little bit more of a character arc. And then for whatever particular reason, they swapped Kelly Puckett out with a different writer and they changed the artist. I forget which issue that was on. I want to say it's somewhere around there. So somewhere in the 30s is where that happens. But everything prior to that, I mean, there's like one fill-in issue with a different artist, but it's still Kelly Puckett writing. Absolutely solid. I mean, you get some really, really great stories in there. Another fun one, I believe this was a tie-in with the Bruce Wayne thing where he was framed for killing someone, and how she figures out that he's Batman is that she's roaming around in the Wayne Manor trying to piece together how this woman was killed by Bruce Wayne. And she sees Bruce as a child after, it's like in a picture, after his parents have been killed. And she recognizes the eyes and she goes, "That's Batman." Because she can see from his eyes, even as like a 10-year-old, he's got that intensity. So that's how she figures out who he is. I thought that was kind of clever. And also there's a sort of the exchange between her and Nightwing where they have to break down how this murder happens. And so Nightwing is trying to, like, reenact it. And she's like, no, you actually hit me. That's the only way we're going to be able to do it. So he's hitting her full force and then playing back the audio from this event. And so basically reenacting this murder. And he's like, oh my God, someone actually like had to beat her to death, knowing exactly where to hit to cause the most pain without instantly killing her. So it's a very, very cool kind of setup for this character. And I kind of wish they would continue the series on instead of just turning her into something else.
Like a CW show?
Yeah, well, they girled her up. That was a follow-up. When I tell you not to read past Kelly Puckett's, I'm not saying that out of, I mean, really, you really don't, because they really do try to girl her up. She is like ungirly as you could get. All right. She's not a tomboy. She's just all about fighting. So when they change the team, she like goes on a date and takes a bubble bath and goes to a club and is dancing with the spoiler and some hot guys. Like that's not her. That's not what she would do. That's not how she is. Give me my fighter girl back. I like that.
You don't like CW Batgirl now?
No, I do not. Well, I know Brian Hill is writing her right in the Batman and the Outsiders.
I really liked the Stephanie Brown Batgirl run, but that's because like I like Stephanie Brown. I don't want Cassandra to be like a low grade Stephanie Brown. I want Cassandra to be Cassandra. You know what I mean? Because I also like the relationship the two of them had, where Cassandra would like try to would own her to say like you're still like wet behind the ears. You need to learn, and then you have like Steph like being very girly Steph, and like the two of them kind of had almost a sisterly bond. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I don't like that character. So it's like every time she was in the book, I'm like, no.
That's fair.
See now.
I just couldn't. I couldn't take it. It's like I could deal with her in the Robin comic, but having her pop up in the Batgirl comic, I'm like,
Stephanie Brown is my favorite Batgirl, personally.
I feel like you two have to have a duel now.
After my duel with England thing to settle who's the better Wonder Woman.
The other reason that I also like it is I did like Cassandra as Black Bat, her kind of doing her own thing, because like it felt like her going into her own kind of like her own way kind of thing.
I don't mind that. I just don't like that they took her out of sort of the bad girl persona, because she's, of all the characters who seem to fit that,
It was
it actually works for her, because she's sort of a,
wow.
she kind of fits with that Batman motif. That's kind of the weird part about Babs' Batgirl is
Step
you're
away
too
from it.
happy.
Wow, I like this art. This art's pretty. This art is pretty sexy. I like.
So Damian Scott, his art switches up as he progresses. So at one point when he was on the Robin comic, he got, it got much rounder, less detailed, and I think right now he's on the Excel comic on Lion Forge. I don't know if that's going to continue since the merger, but he's doing that, and his artwork has kind of gone back towards what he was doing with Batgirl, but not quite. More closer to the later issues. But I mean, the covers on this, in the mid of the series, like around like issue 13 to
Yeah.
like 25, that's when he like hits his stride. And I mean, like every book, there's something to enjoy.
GSG.
Yeah.
Someone in the comments said that Cassandra Cain's bat outfit looks like a gimp suit.
It does. That's why it works. Is because she's creepy.
Now we
And
know JSG's fetishes. Well, one of them.
I don't know. Maybe I just like that. Maybe I do like the happy-go-lucky Stephanie a bit more. That's just who I am. But
Stephanie was definitely someone who was normal, who wanted to do something good. Reminds me a bit of Barbara. The way that Barbara.
Well, originally Stephanie was supposed to be Barbara, because like the original intent was that it was supposed to be Barbara, supposed to get the use for legs back. They decided that was a bad idea, and decided like it'd be good for Stephanie. What I liked about it is it also lets Stephanie redeem her character as compared to like what happened previously, like not only in the Robin run, but just what kind of happened to her previously as a character. So this has allowed her to kind of redeem herself, because part of her run was also her
hijacking Robin's name too.
Well, hijacking Robin's name, yes, but the part of her run was also her moving on, because remember, like she lost she lost like a baby during her actual like back when she was part of the Robin run and everything of that nature. And so for her, there's just like a moving on moment, because like she pretended, like she literally went off the grid after Robin and pretended that she had died and everything. And so this idea was, okay, well, she's going back to college. She's actually going to try to live her, like actually try to have a life, try to actually be a normal person, but at the same time, she can't get away from super heroic. So her being Batgirl and having like Barbara actually train her personally was kind of the idea.
Yeah, and Barbara, the chemistry between Barbara and Stephanie in that book was really amazing. I loved it.
Now I can understand where people didn't like it, because like, I mean, for people who I know that are really, really big fans of the Cassandra run, I can completely understand why they didn't like it, because it's kind of like almost a return to form for what original Batgirl was, but Cassandra had brought in like this darker, much more serious take to the character that people were really enjoying. And I knew I enjoyed it, but I'm not going to expect everyone else to enjoy it. And I can understand where the problem is. I think what would have really helped it is if Cassandra had her own book and there was a Black Bat book running alongside, where the people who wanted Cassandra could definitely still get Cassandra.
Well, the other would have been if they hadn't altered her personality too, because that was the other thing that they kept doing, is they kept screwing with her personality.
Yeah,
So the character you get in Batgirl, by the time you have the Stephanie Brown run on Batgirl, like that's not, I think there's a point where she's speaking, was it Navajo? It's like she can barely speak English. How is she speaking Navajo?
Navajo? What?
I'm not making that up. There's a point where they're using codes to like communicate with each other, and so they're using codes in Navajo. And I'm like, this is not the Windtalkers. What are you doing? This girl cannot speak English well. She could barely put together 4 words, and you got her speaking a foreign and Navajo at that. Do you realize how complicated that language is?
I mean, I think the biggest disservice is in the not New 52, or was it New 52, whatever, at DCU, something. It was either around DCU or New 52, where they try to like bring in like Harper, like that,
Yeah.
And they're trying to. They were so strongly trying to hint her and Harper in a relationship, and I'm like, no, don't do this. Don't do this.
Okay.
Not that I have anything against like a lesbian relationship, but like I don't need to see the writers, my fiction, like my do nothing wrong fictional the character who's probably not even going to be here 2 runs later, like with Cassandra, who's like been an asexual character most of this run. Like she doesn't care about relationships.
Yeah, she's like an ultimate martial artist.
Yeah.
She has
Like-
transcended desires of the flesh. I gotta ask one question though. Navajo? Really?
Yes.
It was just something they decided to do, and I think it was so bad. Even Gail Simone is like, what are you doing? When Gail Simone is objecting to this type of stuff, you know it's wrong.
Yeah,
It's like, because she normally wouldn't care, and she's like, why would you do this?
I mean,
It makes no sense. No sense.
it's so strange. It's like, so what do you want? What do you want the character to speak? I wanted to speak Navajo. I wanted to open up a casino. You know.
They were practically writing her like she was normal, and disregarding all that backstory. And that was kind of the cool element of it, was having her interact with other characters similar to her. Like she interacted with Green Arrow, the son of Green Arrow, who's also called Green Arrow because they're lazy. And they kind of still ignored that he's technically mixed race, because originally they were showing that, and then they decided, we're just gonna make him look white. So in this one, he doesn't look mixed race, but they essentially have a similar background of being trained as these top martial artists. Just a slightly different goal, where she's meant to be an assassin and he's not. But it's interesting seeing them interact together. So it's like, I like that element of those early issues, where it's just sort of an all-in-one story, so you can just sit there, read it. There's a kind of cohesive subplot between her and Babs, and then having spoiler come in a couple of times, and so they're acting as a sort of the subplot element, and then you have her interacting with Batman here and there, but it's primarily just her. Drop her in a scene and see what happens, and that's basically what happens, and it's just really fun.
Maybe they were trying to do like a soft retcon of the character by making her personality almost normal. And I think you said they were trying to make her girly. Is that right?
Yeah, they did that when she still had her comic. That was like after Kelly Puckett. That runs when they started doing that. And then there was a second run. I think L.A. Garza was the artist on that. I forget who wrote it. And they kind of toned it down, but it was still there. It just didn't feel like the same character. It was very weird. It was very, very weird. And then the book got canceled, and then they didn't know what to do with her. And then they decided that they were going to bring Barbara back as Batgirl. And then they got such a nasty fan reaction from the people who were fans of Stephanie Brown. And they're like, well, you killed her off. What you going to do with her? So they switched it, because originally it was going to be Babs. And then they decided they were going to make it Stephanie Brown. And then, of course, they bring the book out, and nobody bought it. So it got canceled. And then they did the New 52, and that was the end of that anyway. So it was kind of silly the way that they did it, because they only did it for a year. And it's like, well, that was a waste. And then they rebooted it, and they just ignored both those characters. So it's like, is Stephanie Brown in this universe? I don't think so. Is Cass in this universe? Maybe not. And like they were just teasing it for a while. So it's just very bizarre.
I think having Barbara Gordon back as Batgirl kind of ruined her character, because, in my opinion, she was much better as Oracle.
She was. It was an interesting way of dealing with the reality of the Batman sort of mythos, right? Like they have real consequences, except for Batman. He has to get his
Batman is immortal. Batman cannot die.
I also feel that it was sort of empowering to a degree, because she came from someone people would call broken to basically like overcoming the obstacles that she had to becoming this like important figure that everyone looked to for information, and sort of assembling her own.
She did more good as Oracle than she ever did as Batgirl.
Exactly, like she overcame a lot. She was like, I thought like taking her, like making her Batgirl again, just took so much from her as a character. It's a shame that they do that.
they forgot that there's this really great line from a person you're not gonna think it's ever gonna have a great line, but it's from Liv Tyler. And it was from the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings where they were talking about Arwen being this like warrior, and they had actually filmed her fighting in Helm's Deep, and people found out about it and went off online. And so she went and spoke with the writers, specifically Fran Welsh and Philippa Bowens, but mostly Fran, and they were sort of coming up with different ways to deal with how to have Arwen's character in the film and meaningful without making her fight. And she comes up with this great line. It's like they discovered that you don't have to put a sword in her hand to show that she's strong. And that's kind of the element that they forgot with a character like Barbara Gordon, is that you don't have to have her be Batgirl to show that she can overcome what was done to her. That's kind of the brilliance of that role as the Oracle, and you just threw it away.
Yeah, it's like people forget that you can make a strong and intelligent character who doesn't like just pick up a sword and just stab people, you know?
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and that's
Information in many ways is much more dangerous than any weapon.
Well, there's also like the scenario where where they were allowed to do much more unique stories when they did the Oracle like minis and stuff like that. Because she wasn't a fighter anymore, because she was a hacker now, and like not only is she a hacker, but she's also like, she's also like a strategist and stuff like that now, right? Like, it says something when the Justice League uses like information from the Oracle, when the Birds of Prey is like headed by the Oracle, when she trains the new Batgirl, you know what I mean? Like,
like she's like more of a leader now.
Yeah.
And also one other thing, right? I feel like it kind of diminishes her because it says that you can only be useful in the plot this one way. But when you contrast it, like look at Lex Luthor. For a long time, he was mostly just a mastermind, but he had such a powerful presence without having to fight anybody or having any sort of like powers or strengths. Like, and that's kind of what they took away from Oracle. Like she had a presence about her and she had this massive degree of importance, but they just took it away. It's like,
and then turned her into a 13-year-old little girl, with the Hot Topic suit.
De-aged her as well.
Yeah,
they turned her into a CW character. Like she takes selfies and she talks about she talks about the patriarchy and stuff now. So.
Yeah. Did you see those redesigned by
where they turned her into Faith?
well,
yeah.
Not quite Faith, but they were trying.
They were like,
I saw they were just god awful.
Yeah.
There was one where it was so weird. Like the hood had like this weird sort of extension to it that covered her entire chest.
Yeah, she was wearing a little mini bat poncho.
Yeah, it was so weird. It stopped at her stomach, and I was just like, so are they trying to like keep her breasts concealed?
Yes.
Like I couldn't.
You already know the answer to that question before you ask it. You already know.
So I have a question. When is the hood coming up?
I'm just
and so that she can say she's Bat Muslim and she's proud.
Like she has called me out so many times tonight. Like I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. Although honestly, I don't see any reason to. You're right.
Did you see the when they did the Hot Topic redesign? And there's if you look it up online, you'll see this. There's an actual part of the image where they're showing that she's supposed to be flat chested. So it's like, don't show the boob line. Like, so they actually have the image where you show that she's got two breasts, and it's like, not this, and then they show the other one, and it's like this, and it's just like a little triangle, and that's all you can see, and it's a triangle on one side. It's like, dude, you are not drawing a cartoon. You have all the time in the world. Have you seen? It's like, it's leather. You can't see anything. I watched The Matrix. You can see the boobs. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Trust me. Because I saw all of everything that Monica Bellucci had. Come on now.
They are so afraid to show any degree of sexuality with characters now. It's like
I don't know
well,
why.
funny
It's
enough,
always
okay, so I
never
didn't
been a
actually.
problem before until
Yeah, like funny enough, I'm one of the people who actually did not hate the Batgirl redesign. Like I thought, okay, aesthetically it looked nice. That's not the issue I had with it. The issue I had with it was everyone who copied it afterwards. Like,
Well, they thought it was cool because like their little friends were saying, "Oh, this is so cool." Yeah, you and your little Twitter friends like it. Nobody else likes this suit.
yeah,
It's
like
terrible.
yeah, like it could have been a fine suit if no one like I think it could have been fine, like not overly offensive. I mean, design wise, I understood what they were trying to go for, but
to be
because
fair,
everyone else was copying it and trying to like make their own version of it, I'm like, okay, you just literally like now the suit just became like trash.
yeah, now everyone like because every woman has to
all right, to be clear, we're talking about the suit where it's essentially just a jacket with a cape that clips on.
Yes.
Yeah, that one that they did
Oh, that
right
was so
when they
cool.
restarted it
But
after what's her face's run.
bat suits are supposed
After
to be
Gail
high
Storm's
tech.
run.
They're
Where-
supposed to be essentially body armor. They're supposed
Right.
to be able to like protect you from like knives and maybe not bullets, but maybe not a direct hit by a bullet, but a bullet. And that
She's
one is
dressed.
something that you could literally get at like Hot Topic or Spencer's.
That
Wait.
was the idea. It was on purpose. That was the thing. It's like they designed that suit for the idea that girls are going to want to cosplay like this.
Was
That's
this
why we did it.
Was this before or after the America design where Marvel said that basically?
This is before.
Okay, so
So America is copying this because first it was Batgirl, then they did it with Spider Woman.
Yes, I was just about to mention that Jessica
Yeah.
Drew.
And then they just kept going down the line. It was like,
yeah, because
come on.
so they could be cosplayable.
Yeah,
Right?
Yes.
The thing about
that's why they're
But the
doing
thing
it.
about that is that even if a costume is difficult or not a realistic outfit, cosplayers will find a way to make it work.
Well, it's not even that. Like, I don't mind like a simple costume. Like, hell, Constantine has a very simple costume. You know what I mean?
But that works for that character.
It works for that character. Even like I can accept the fact that this worked for Batgirl, especially with the setting that they put her in. That she was, I don't want to count on Bruce. I want to do my own thing, and she lost her like all her gadgets and everything. So she just kind of whipped together like a quick Batgirl suit. Okay, this made sense in the context of the story that they told, right? Here's the thing. Everyone else tried to do it. So the problem is, okay, you literally took away all the uniqueness of what this costume was, of like what they were even trying to do. And I understand like maybe this was done for cosplay purposes, and I get that. I'll even grant you that. But like you took away everything that was like,
Even in the context of the story, I don't like it. I don't think it works. So you can buy actual body armor like off the internet.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a weird part about the story. That she has money.
Mm-hmm.
But she has money, right? It's not like she's broke in the story. So
no, it's not that she's broke, but she is a college student. I mean, that was the kind of the idea of the story.
Is she? Why?
But she's got all these connections. Like she can't.
I don't know.
Somebody else.
Okay.
I mean, again, she says she doesn't want to count on Batman. She doesn't want to count on Batman. I get it, but like,
she was a professor in the Stephanie Brown Batgirl series. Now she's a freaking college student. I hate.
Well, this is New 52. They de-aged her.
Yeah,
they de-aged her, dude.
Here's my thing.
I know that.
Going back to the Amy Schumer Batgirl, like
again,
that is the perfect name. That is exactly what that is. The Amy Schumer Batgirl.
The Amy Schumer Batgirl. So are they going? I know I will probably get crap from this, but are they going to explain how she went from looking that way to gaining, significant weight? Like, are they going to? Because those are two.
I mean, if she starts making an Amy Schumer joke about how she has a slopping wet vagina, I mean, there won't be a question of how big of how fat she got. We'll know how.
They're called ho-hos. That's what she's in college. She got them college 10 pounds and an extra 30. That's what happened.
Okay. Can we agree that the Stephanie Brown, like, because I was like searching on Batgirl, can we agree the Stephanie Brown costume is actually really cool? Because like, has that really like off purple on the sides?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The
I'm
black and the purple really go well together, in my opinion.
My thing is, it's just that the two designs are so radically different, and I know that people will say, "Oh, well, they make new redesigns of characters all the time." Yeah, but it's usually within like the same physical range of that character. And now she looks older and fatter. So
I can only assume it was designed by the people that made the new She-Ra cartoon.
No, it
No,
wasn't.
it's the dude who worked on America.
Yeah.
That was who did it. It was the guy who did the art for America.
Oh, that explains so much.
Wait,
He
is
is
it
awful.
art or the cover art?
The interior art. It was that
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, the interior art was just god awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
He's on that book that Englandine hates. Dial H for Hero.
What the hell is Dial H for Hero?
It was where you had an actual dial and you would like turn it and then you would turn into whatever hero it was. Think like Ben 10, but this is like the
Actually,
precursor to Ben 10.
Ben 10 is actually based off of Dial H.
Yeah, it's basically what it is.
Yeah. So, so Dial H for Hero is you have like a dial of. Initially, it's the 10 heroes where you can dial the numbers and you become that hero. Then it became like it's actually dimensional, and so like what you're doing is you're dialing a hero from some alternate dimension and becoming that hero. And so it became infinite pretty much eventually. I actually do like I do recommend the original run with the one England team likes is really good, but I also recommend the New 52 run as well. Not the current run. The current run's just trash.
Okay, what is the current run? If you don't mind,
It's under the Wonder imprint, controlled by Bendis.
Like, I mean, like, what's okay? So that's why it's so horrible because it's like Bendis.
They're
Bendis.
using an actual rotary phone.
Yeah.
To dial. Yeah.
So when the New 52 version actually had the rotary, but it wasn't like the phone. It was just like an actual rotary device. Like it would look like a sci-fi rotary device.
Yeah.
That like they could just carry around, and they just like they dialed it and it worked. So like proving that the device itself is like cosmic in some kind of nature, not just some rotary phone.
It's an actual rotary phone. Actual rotary phone.
I saw like the cosmic energy thing with the outlines. I'm like, this is badass. This looks like an anime. And then you tell me that they went from that to a rotary phone.
Like,
all right.
I recommend the Dial H New 52 run, especially because like literally the last issue is literally like a Dial V for villain or like or something like that. Like they literally they have a play on words where the like the last issue, because they have the omnibus that collects all the issues together, and the last issue is literally like they do like Dial V for villain or something of that nature to kind of us because of the way it ends and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of cool.
You looked it up, did you?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, guys, to get back a bit more on topic, Corrupt, you're up again. Do you have another recommendation?
Yes, I do. If I can find it, because I have my list in front of me, and I have a bunch of tabs open for the comic. Oh yeah, so this is old, and it was a like mini series, if you want to call it that. Basically, it was Villains United. If anyone's familiar with that.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay, so essentially, it was a sort of like a side story. Do you remember the Society of Supervillains?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was so initially when they were recruiting, they wanted to recruit, and it's written by Gail Simone of all people. So that surprised me. But this was like way back in like 2009 and 2008. So like a lot of the stuff that makes Gail's writing now kind of isn't there for the most part anyway. So essentially, when the Secret Society went to recruit Catman, he was really buff and like he sort of turned them down, right? And so they went off and left him alone. But what happened was Luthor had Deathstroke kill off his cats as a punishment for like turning them down. And then so another part of the story has the formation of this group created by this mysterious guy called Mockingbird. And essentially what Mockingbird wants to do is he wants to create a set of 6 supervillains who could challenge Luthor's super society of supervillains. And it's interesting because it completely takes the point of view. It's completely centered around Catman, who's like buff and Cheshire, Deathstroke, Scandal, and a Parademon and Ragdoll. And it's actually the fights are pretty great. Everything about it is actually pretty fun. Like, it's not deep or anything, but it is fairly interesting in the way that Luthor tries to use them as sort of like propaganda to keep the keep the society together. Like, if you don't join us, this will happen. And the initial recruitment tool they used for the society was the threat of getting lobotomized, like how the JLA or JL lobotomized Dr. Light. So, and they were terrified of getting lobotomized, so they joined the society. And then, like, Luthor was like, okay, well, we'll use, like, this 6 with Catman and all these other, like, this small group of villains who hates us as a threat to the other villains so that they'll come and join the society. It was pretty, like, I don't know, like, I enjoyed it. It was pretty okay. I don't think it had, let me see, it had, like, 6 issues, I think. But yeah, it was pretty good. Let me see. Yeah, Villains United. It was written by 6 issues basically, and with 1 Infinite Crisis special, and that's about it. So I guess that's me.
Nice.
All right, I'm up next. The comic I want to talk about is actually an event. It's I've talked about this before on other streams, but it's Annihilation for Marvel Comics.
Oh yes, Annihilation, good stuff. Also, the best version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. It comes after that, but yes.
Yeah. So Annihilation is essentially the Annihilation wave from the negative zone enters the positive matter universe and essentially goes to war with everything in existence. The Nova Corps on Xandar get an alert that these incursions are happening, and they gather their Novas together to form a battle strategy. But right when they're in the middle of that, the Annihilation shows up at Xandar and essentially just carpet bombs the entire planet and destroys everything. The only Nova that survives ends up being Richard Rider, who, in order to save the last of Xandarian culture, takes in the entirety of the Nova Force and the Xandarian world mine, essentially becoming Nova Prime. Quasar, Wendell Vaughn, Nova goes to him for help, and they decide, well, we're both really powered up right now. Why don't we just head to Annihilus himself and try and take him out before the war gets going? So they fly in, and they try and take out Annihilus, but Annihilus just ends up beating the shit out of both of them. It ends up killing Wendell Vaughn and taking the quantum bands. So it's like, yeah, you just made the situation 1,000 times worse. And the Annihilation wave just starts tearing it. It cuts a swath of the entire universe. Like, billions are like just decimated. And let's see, he actually ends up working with Thanos and capturing Galactus to use as a kind of weapon against the universe. And everybody bands together, because it doesn't matter if you're Kree or you're a Skrull or whatever. This is a fight for universal survival. And they start fighting the Annihilation wave on this one section of the galaxy, where it's like the wave just keeps coming and coming, and it's like one continuous fight. And they have people coming in taking shifts on the guns because people need to sleep, but the war does not stop at all. There's no lull in the fighting. And then they managed to recruit a couple Heralds of Galactus to provide aerial cover against the big ships. And it's just it's kind of years and years of warfare starts to take their toll on people. Richard Rider ends up becoming a general, and Peter Quill is his right-hand man. And it's just you see the weight that this war is taking on him. He says to himself, I was with the New Warriors a couple of years ago. Now I'm a general leading an army. How the hell did this happen? It's just a really amazing event. Me describing it cannot do it justice at all. It is absolutely one of the best events Marvel has ever had, in my opinion. And like the ending fight is just one of the best fights I've ever seen in any comic ever. So Phyla-Vell, the daughter of Mar-Vell, the original Captain Marvel, she joins with Richard Rider to try and take down Annihilus. She manages to get the quantum bands away from Annihilus in order to become the new Quasar. And once the quantum bands are off, Richard Rider, he plunges his hand down Annihilus' throat and then rips his spine out through his mouth.
Jeez.
One of the best finishers of anything I've ever seen in my entire life ever. So yeah, I love this book. Definitely recommend it. It's if you like the cosmic side of Marvel, then this is something that you absolutely must read. Yeah, that's my recommendation.
That's a fatality right there.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody got anything else you would like to recommend?
Well, like, right now it's about 12 o'clock. Like we've been.
Yeah, no, I need to. Like, I mean, it's. I think I've run out of things to recommend. I mean, I'm sure there's probably more. I don't remember them anymore. I've gone through. But I do appreciate you letting me on, and it is getting kind of late though.
Yeah, it just seems like a good place to end it. So I really appreciate you guys coming on and being a part of my show. I know we had some technical difficulties in the beginning, but I thank you for sticking with me through that.
This was great. I hope you let me on again sometime this week.
Yeah, this is really cool.
So
nice
any
to
of you
talk
got
about good comics.
yeah.
Yes.
So any of you guys have anything that's coming up in the future?
I'm gonna start. So, like Switch and I. So I have several projects, but Switch and I are going to make a joint channel where we'll. What are we gonna do all this? Well, where we're gonna do like various like topics.
Just kind of random trolly stuff, I guess you could say.
First thing we're gonna do is he's gonna play this lesbian game called Tacoma.
Yeah, it's pretty okay. Have you ever heard of the game Gone Home?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be Gone Home, but like in space, because it's made by the same developers.
And basically,
isn't there like a way in Gone Home where you could like beat the game in like 5 minutes?
Yes. I don't think Tacoma has that option, but it is very SJW. I've already played through it once.
Yeah, it's like
literally, it's not a game. I don't know why this is called a video game. It's not a video game.
Yeah, basically, he just walked. So the first time I talked to him about it, I was on call with him, right? And he walked around a base and just read stuff, and that was pretty much it. He didn't get attacked by anything. There was no real threat. There was no real puzzles or anything to solve. He just read diaries, and that's it.
I kind of feel like a stalker because I was reading people's personal information.
Yeah, he just rummaged through people's drawers and looked at their trophies. And
if you do nothing that actually like yourself to affect the plot in a video game, or like at least be considered the main character in the video game, if you're only a passerby, it's not a video game.
It's more like you're some sort of creepy stalker who's just looking through people's stuff, really.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna like do a reaction. Basically, he's gonna play it. I'm gonna do like a reaction to it and edit it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
What's that?
I've seen games like that. What really makes playthroughs for games like that entertaining is the commentary.
Yeah, we have to do the commentary for that because it's not like, and I know people have mixed opinions about things like Outlast, right? But it's not like a game like Outlast where, you know, you're constantly under the threat of being killed by some creature or some, you know, like crazy dude. In this, you have a person just walking around looking through other people's stuff, trying to find out if they're dead or not. And the twist is, I guess, is it a twist that they really aren't dead. They just left.
Yeah. And that's actually what happened. But like, honestly, okay, so here's the other thing is that like I've played games where there isn't like a main villain. That's fine. Like there isn't a villain, there isn't like a bad guy or a good guy. Like maybe it is just a puzzle game. I've played those before, even visual novels. Like I've played those before. right? Where those things are, there's at least some level of challenge. There's at least something where you're doing that you're actually affecting the story, or you're at least affecting the world around you. Like, you are at least the arbiter of what's happening. Like, it is a game. This was not. You are literally just a person. Somebody's telling you a story, but you're in first person view, and you're kind of walking around getting the story. It's badly, and it's like, there's not like it's good, because like it's bad. There's like, the animations aren't that great. The models aren't that great. Yeah.
There's a really great series of games that if you want to do let's plays or playthroughs on your channel, it's a Japanese game called Danganronpa.
Oh, yeah, like I like that. Is a really dark game too.
Yeah. Like, I started watching the anime of it, and then I said, all right, I gotta play this game. So I played through 1 and 2, and like, yeah, those games get really, really dark.
Like they really do. Like, what was it? What's the virus that drove everyone insane because they got really depressed?
It wasn't a virus. It was the most horrible. It was described as the most horrible, despair-inducing incident in human history.
Oh yeah, right. Because it was like a brainwashing wave, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that just drove everybody into the pits of despair to the point where they just went insane and nothing mattered anymore. So everybody just started causing chaos.
Yeah, and then it's not until like it's not until like 3 that they actually like restore humanity with the like with another wave that's supposed to like give them hope, I believe.
There was an anime that takes place after 2 where that happens.
So. Like it was just this, yeah, but like Mr. E, this was fun, man. Like if you're doing another, let me know.
All right. What about you, JSG? Do you have anything coming up?
No, I still got to read through a bunch of comics to do a review. I've got quite a few sitting on the side, and then I want to do some longer reviews, so it's going to take some time to read through all those different issues.
Yeah. Also, I gotta get my channel back on track, right? Because for my credits and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I started a video where I talked about what was wrong with modern comics. So I talked about what was wrong with the villains in modern comics. So I think I'm going to continue that. Next one I'm going to do is what's wrong with heroes on modern comics.
That's interesting. So you wanted to do what's wrong with villains. See, that's something we never really talk about. We always talk about what's wrong with the heroes. So that's an interesting take.
Yeah. So that's going to be coming up for me. But I really appreciate you guys for coming on. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for watching the stream. Thank you, everybody that watches this afterwards. And remember, life is always better with a little mystery. Have a good night.
Oh, I like that. That's a clever way of